gambling apps, and influencers.
Elas acompanham muitas influenciadoras.
They follow many influencers who are very famous and tend to publicize the type of game they play. Women generally like games like online slot machines. And it is precisely these games that influencers usually promote. Some even said that it could be a source of income. This brought many women to play this type of game, but that sort of promotion has now been banned. But it took 5 years to have this type of change, and many women were already having problems with gambling.
Bruna says many of the women are suffering from mental health issues brought on by different sorts of abuse.
Most of the time, these are patients who already have a diagnosis of depression and anxiety. They are people who are vulnerable.
What are we talking about when we're talking about vulnerability? What exactly?
It can be physical, verbal, or sexual violence.
In the past, Bruna says it's taken longer for women to start gambling. But once they do, they get hooked particularly quickly.
It's what we call the telescope effect, that women take longer to play, perhaps because of the barriers for women that exist in the gambling culture. But when they start, the progression to gambling disorder is very quick. It's also very common that divorce happens when people get involved with gambling, especially men. Sometimes because of the lies related to their gambling habit and all that. We see a lot of divorces.
Even if Professor Tavares, Bruna, and their colleagues are only able to treat a small fraction of gambling addicts, Professor Tavares says many see very positive results.
Out of each 10 cases that we receive, 7 complete the treatment and 5 achieve remission. It's a 50% remission rate. That's already above what we usually obtain with a substance addiction.
He has this advice for anyone who thinks they may have become or are addicted.
Avoid people who are related to gambling. Don't leave home with a credit card with an infinite finance limit. Delete the gambling app from your phone. You should keep a log and see how much money you were spending, how much time you were expending on this, and you choose someone who will be, so to speak, your sponsor. You can rely on, that won't be too judgmental, but someone that you look for and you can tell this person how much you have really gambled and if this is going well or not.
The Brazilian government has a dilemma. If it restricts gambling again, it's likely to move underground, where a sizable amount of betting already happens. But many believe the government has to go further than it has so far to stop millions of more Brazilians becoming addicted, and to treat those who already are. Assignment was presented by me, Camila Mota. The producer was Bob Howard.
That was Assignment from the BBC. I'm Saroja Coelho, and this...
Well, good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio One, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa, and you could feel that cool chill in the air. It's 15 right now in Winnipeg, just 8 right now in Brandon, and 3 degrees now in Thompson, and you can tell that September's just around the corner. It's Thursday, August 27th. It's been raining acorns on my yard now for about a week. You're starting to see those leaves change color, back to school vibes, and then commercials are starting to show up on TV. But here we are. It is still August. We're going to try to make the most of summer. And let's say hello to the wonderful crew helping put together today's show. John George is our studio technician today. Abby Adiemi is keeping an eye on your weather. Sierra Sanders is our studio director, keeping an eye on your commute. And Darren Morash is our YouTube producer. Let's also say good morning to Heather Wells, who's in with the look at news headlines. Hi there.
Hi there. Good morning. Well, the owners of a Brandon bakery are frustrated and out some cash after learning they had fallen for an online scam. Wheat City Wheatless Goods were excited to get an email inviting them to register for Assiniboia Downs Manitoba Market, the night market. The owner, Lane Quigley, says he sent an e-transfer to the emailer on the day of the event. He called Assiniboia Downs and found out they weren't on the list. The email was not the correct email. We're going to hear how scammers have been using other Manitoba pop-up markets in their attempts to get money from vendors. And a baby red panda is getting people's attention at Assiniboine Park Zoo. The 10-week-old male finally emerged from his nest this week. We're going to hear all about it in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
Cute.
Yes.
Looking forward to that. Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That's Heather Wells at your CBC News desk. Also coming up this next hour on Information Radio, legacy planning isn't just about having a will. Missing details like bank information, digital accounts, or insurance records can leave families scrambling. So Succession Binder might help ensure important documents and access information aren't lost. So we're going to hear all about that with our personal finance columnist. Stay tuned for that.
I'm Talia Schlanger, sitting in for Tom Power. After 7 years, musician Sarah Bareilles is back with a brand new album called Good Grief. It was born out of some of the most difficult times in her life, including losing friends and an unsuccessful journey with IVF. She'll tell you what she's learned about hope after loss.
Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. In northern Nepal, people stand near a flooded road after most of their village was destroyed. Their homes and vehicles now buried in mud after a massive glacier collapse and landslide. Some 290 people are dead. Hundreds more, including 25 Canadians, are missing along the Nepal-Tibet border. This man is the deputy director of a local teaching hospital in Nepal.
It's really overwhelming, as most of you might be knowing. Almost 4 districts, they have been cut off from the mainland. All the bridges have been washed away. And because of the high velocity of flooding, it's like a flash flood, so people could not protect themselves. And there are lots of casualties. The exact situation is yet to be known.
Rescue efforts in the Himalayan region have been hampered due to the severe flooding and the difficult terrain. Police in northern France are securing the area around the Caen railway station. It's where investigators say a driver deliberately slammed his car into a group of pedestrians late last night. 1 person is dead, 10 others injured, 7 of them critically. Local officials say the incident was not a terrorist attack. Instead, they believe it was the result of a local street fight that turned violent. The suspect is currently in custody, and a police investigation is underway. Closing arguments begin today in the trial of Lindsay Clancy. The Massachusetts mother is accused of killing her 3 children in 2023. She's pleaded not guilty due to a lack of criminal responsibility. Her lawyers argue that she was experiencing postpartum psychosis. The CBC's Chris Reyes joins us now from New York. Chris, what can we expect today?
Hi, John. So lawyers will make their final case to the jury. The defense has portrayed Clancy as a competent nurse who was present for her 3 children until her mental health began spiraling after the birth of her 3rd child. According to her lawyers, Clancy was overprescribed drugs and given inconsistent treatment. Clancy also claimed she heard a voice telling her to murder her children. They were strangled in her basement in 2023 while her husband was out of the house. They were 5, 3, and 8 months old at the time. Clancy then jumped from a 2nd-floor balcony, which left her paralyzed. The final witness of the case, John, a psychiatrist, told the jury he didn't believe Clancy heard voices. Prosecutors argue that Clancy knew what she was doing at the time of the murders. If found guilty, she could face life in prison. If not guilty on the basis of insanity, she would be committed to a psychiatric facility.
Chris, this case has received a lot of attention in the U.S.
That's right. This has sparked a lot of conversation around postpartum care, given that throughout the case, the defense portrayed Clancy as someone who tried to get help for months for her insomnia, anxiety, depression. She even checked herself into a psychiatric ward. Hundreds of women wearing pink have shown up at the trial in support of Clancy, with many saying her story resonated with them. The defense doesn't dispute that Clancy killed her children, only that she should not be held criminally responsible because of mental illness.
The CBC's Chris Reyes in New York. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
The United States Trade Representative says it's not clear when negotiations with Canada will resume after collapsing last weekend. In a Canadian exclusive, Jamieson Greer also denies that his team added last-minute conditions to the deal, pushing back against Prime Minister Mark Carney's account of why talks fell apart. Catherine Tunney reports.
I would say we don't have open channels right now.
Hope for a quick resolution dashed. The U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer says it's unclear when his country and Canada will return to the negotiating table. A concern as the two countries barrel deeper into a trade war.
If there's further retaliation from the Canadian side, we of course we're not going to just sit down and take that. Our view is don't retaliate. But I know that I know how people are feeling in Canada.
Prime Minister Mark Carney has said last-minute changes from the U.S. scuttled the deal, calling the proposals unfair. In an exclusive interview with CBC's Rosemary Barton, Greer pushed back.
When they came back, they had some additional views, they had some additional requests, they had some additional things that were too much for the United States.
Trump's trade official told CBC Canadian negotiators had concerns about the deal's implementation. He also disputed Carney's account that the terms would have encroached on Canada's ability to pursue trade agreements with other countries, or would have undermined French language protections. Neither government has released the text of the draft agreement. Catherine Tunney, CBC News, Washington.
Quebec's premier is set to trigger a provincial election today. Christine Frechette will visit the lieutenant governor later this morning in a meeting that's expected to launch a 39-day-long campaign. And as Quebecers prepare to head to the polls on October 5th, it's clear the economy and U.S. trade war will take center stage. The CBC's Cathy Senet explains.
Christine Frechette puis l'équipe de la CAQ sont les meilleurs.
Christine Frechette and the CEQ are the best to protect Quebec's economy, says former Premier François Legault, even though his successor has tried to distance herself, even rebranding the party as Team Christine Frechette. Legault resigned in January because he knew under his leadership the party would lose the upcoming election. Still, he stood side by side with Frechette to announce the party's new candidate for the riding of l'Assomption, the seat he currently holds. For polling analyst Philippe G. Fournier, it's not ideal.
I'm surprised that the candidate would want necessarily to be photographed with Monsieur Legault. Perhaps they have done local polling that showed that it would be a good idea, but I haven't seen those numbers.
Frechette believes this election campaign is about the trade war with the U.S.
I've been tested. I've worked into economic sectors for years. I've been Minister of Immigration, Minister of Economy, of Energy, and now Premier.
For the Quebec Conservative Party leader Éric Duhaime, it's about change.
Well, we hope that this election will be about the Quebec model, the bureaucratic model of Quebec. We have 4 political parties that are essentially defending the status quo.
This year, the Parti québécois has a much stronger organization than in the previous election. The PQ has been leading in the polls since 2023, and it promises a third referendum on Quebec independence, something polls show a majority of Quebecers are not interested in at this time. Cathy Senet, CBC News, Quebec City.
They're the unassuming sensory toys taking the world by storm. But the so-called squishies or squishy dumplings, popular with children and young adults, have health and safety authorities on alert. Chemical and burn risks are now seeing some countries take action, though as Talia Sarv explains, Canada is yet to follow.
3, 2, 1.
Squeals of surprise as soft palm-sized toys are being filmed, unboxed, squeezed, then shared online. This is Squishy Mania. But high demand for the brand name products has prompted an influx of cheaper and potentially hazardous fakes to hit the market.
It's cheap for a reason.
University of Toronto professor and chemist Miriam Diamond says it has amplified the risk of the unknown, with toy manufacturers not obligated to disclose ingredients.
There could be chemicals there that are fairly benign, but there could also be chemicals that are of concern.
Australia and the US are cracking down at their borders to seize counterfeit toys amid growing safety concerns. Among them, cases of skin burns when the toy overheats and explodes. A UK study also found unsafe levels of toxic carcinogen benzene in some. But product safety group Consumer Reports says it's not just about counterfeits.
We're actually seeing incidents of products that are happening that are purchased directly from retail.
Health Canada is reviewing more than 30 reports from the last 4 months. Amazon Canada has removed some off-brand dumpling-shaped versions. For now, experts advise to keep the toys away from hot areas and surfaces and inspect them regularly, monitoring for leaks. Talia Sav, CBC News, Toronto.
And finally, pioneering polka dot-loving Japanese artist Yayoi Kusama has died. Her paintings, installations, and sculptures have been drawing crowds around the world for decades. In 2023, Kusama launched a collaboration with luxury brand Louis Vuitton. This woman traveled to the Champs-Élysées for the big reveal.
Louis Vuitton has this love for her and her artistic. I think it makes it fun and unique, and it revives the brand, the old brand. It attracts a younger demographic, and the Japanese love Louis Vuitton anyway.
Kusama was known for her bold, colorful work, which often featured polka dots. Her studio says she died on August 14th in a hospital in Tokyo. Yayoi Kusama was 97 years old. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio One, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. Well, coming up this coming half hour on the show, legacy planning isn't just about having a will. Missing details like bank information, digital accounts, insurance records can leave families scrambling. So a succession binder might help ensure important documents and access to information aren't lost. We're going to hear how to put one together from our personal finance columnist. Also, one local high schooler was so fed up with his transit commute to school that he started taking an Uber instead. We're going to hear that interview to start the show as we prepare for yet more changes to our city bus system. That story, much more coming up this next hour on Information Radio. Stay tuned. Right now at 6:11, let's check in with Heather Wells, who's in with a look at news headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a Winnipeg candle company hopes to escape most of the financial fallout from the latest round of American tariffs. That's because Farmer's Son chose to find new clients and partners outside the United States after the first round of tariffs. Co-owner Dan Mitchell says they overhauled their business model, expanded their retail store, and now source materials and new products from Canada, Asia, and Europe. We'll hear more about that. And if you live near the North End sewage treatment plant, you might notice a smell in the air over the next few weeks. The city of Winnipeg started operating its newly upgraded Headworks facility. It uses a biological process to break down odors, but it takes time for the bacteria that carries out that process to grow inside the plant. We'll hear just how long you might be smelling that not so sweet air coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
It is kind of cool that they use bacteria, not just like Lysol. So
yeah.
That's what I maybe would assume they use it like decentify or something.
Just get a whole bunch of candles in there. See, there's another market right there.
Exactly. That's all you need. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
That is Heather Wells at your CBC News desk. And joining us now is Abby Adiemi, who's in with a look at your weather. Hi.
Hi, Corey. We are looking at another beautiful August day ahead across most of the regions today. We're talking about lots of sunshine dominating the south and even the northern region with highs in the 20s. Winnipeg, we're starting the day already. We're looking at 15, 16 degrees at the Forks, and the airport is tracking about 8 degrees this morning. We'll see a high around 23 degrees across most of the regions. It's all about the sunshine today with highs ranging from 23 to 26 degrees, and the northern region will even crawl close to 25 degrees. But overall, it's bright and sunny Thursday, comfortable warmth. Winnipeg, we're starting the day 15 at the Forks, 8 at the airport, warming up to 23 today.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
Sierra Sanders in now with Look at Your Commute.
Hi, Corey.
Hi.
Well, that's Big Leagues Abby, actually, because he's in the studio with us
That's
today.
right. We've got John George behind the glass here, behind the controls. And that freed up Abby now to come in studio.
To play with the big league.
Exactly. Turning to the commute, so far it's not looking too busy out there. I haven't heard of any major backups or incidents, but it is quite early in the morning right now. But so that might change here throughout the morning. But if that does, I'd love to hear from you on the CBC commuter line. You can give me a call. That number's 204-788-3093.
Well, as we quickly barrel towards back-to-school season this fall, the City of Winnipeg will be rolling out more improvements to the ever-changing transit system, in addition to the ones that were already made back in June. But will they be enough to impress students who are returning to class? And to start the show today, we're actually revisiting a conversation with a Winnipeg high school student who felt the Winnipeg transit overhaul was failing him and his classmates. Gershon Manku is going into grade 11 next month at Maples Collegiate. But when we spoke to him in January, he told us what used to be a simple bus commute to school took a turn for the worse with the system changes. His bus was often late and his travel time was longer, and he wrote a letter to his city councillor, Devi Sharma, about it, and it turned into a school project. Now, Gershon and his teacher, Chantal Ramraj, spoke with CBC's Marcy Marcusa.
Good morning.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and your teacher's here too, Chantal Ramraj. Hi, Chantal.
Hi, Marcy.
So your route used to take the 33 bus, right?
Yes.
Okay, so and it switched then in that part of the city, it would have switched to 2 buses?
Yeah.
Okay, so the 37 and the 336.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. So when you used to go to school, how fast was the 33?
It was an 8-minute bus ride. It was very simple.
Okay, and so it was like 8 minutes. And how many years did you take it, Gershon? You're like you're 15 now, so
Yeah, I
did you
took
take the
it
bus for a while?
like almost the entirety of my freshman year.
Okay. And did you ever have major issues with it, or was it pretty consistent? What was it like?
It was very consistent. All I would have to do is just like show up at my bus stop, get in, and then I'd be at school.
Okay. So you would be coming from what neighborhood then, if I'm thinking of that part of town?
I live in Amber Trails.
Got it. And would you take it with other students, or was it a...
Yeah, it would be on me and my friends and like just everybody in the Amber area.
Got it. And so most people would be on the bus.
A lot of people.
So this changes, and you try the new system.
Uh-huh.
Did it involve a transfer then?
Yeah, it was 2 buses, and it was just like super complicated.
What was complicated about it?
It's like the bus takes you in a whole different direction. The bus stops have changed, and then you have to change and then you have to get on another bus just to get to where you're going. Where before it was just a simple route.
Got it. A lot of people talk about the walk being different. Did you have to walk farther as well, or that wasn't an issue?
For me, I kind of had to walk farther.
Okay. How long would the whole thing take you when you did try it?
Like 45 minutes.
45?
Mm-hmm.
Compared to?
8-minute bus ride that would take me to school.
What'd you think of that?
I just thought it was overcomplication where there shouldn't be.
Yeah. We are going to talk more about how you're getting to school now in a minute, but I want to get you to read, because you actually sent a letter, as we mentioned, to Councillor Devi Sharma, right? And in front of you, you've actually got a transcript. I was going to read it, but you're here, so why would I read your words? Tell me a little bit, read this section out here that we've highlighted, okay?
All right. For me, this isn't just a news story. It's my daily life. If I do use the bus, I have to change 2 buses to get to school. Because the schedules are rarely on time, it's annoying. Because you took away the direct bus for this overcomplicated mess of a transit system. And now if I do take the bus, when I'm not trying to avoid it at all costs, I'm stuck waiting for transfers in the cold. It has reached the point where I prefer calling the Uber to make it to class on time. It's not even about the money. It's about the fact the system should be a lifeline, not ruined by overcomplication, or is ruined by overcomplication.
So that's a section. So you've kind of answered my next question there. You take Uber sometimes now?
Yeah, I Uber a lot now.
Do you? Okay. So tell me a little bit about why you've chosen to do that, and are others also choosing to do that, other students?
Yeah, so I usually carpool with my friends, and me and my friends and a bunch of other people who used to take the bus, now we're all in different cars going to the same place.
Really?
Yeah.
How many carpools, like in your neighborhood? Do you have a sense of?
Just on my street alone, there's 6 different cars.
6 different...
6 different cars with like 1 to 2 people in, and that's just my street.
And would that otherwise have been students that are busing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Chantal, this is part of, I alluded to this, so I'll go to you now, to your teacher here. This is part of a classroom assignment, or I guess it morphed into that, right? So what are you actually having the students work on?
For sure. So this is part of a grade 10 geography class, and our focus was climate change. And actually the assignment criteria was to look at federal policy. And I don't take the bus anymore. So I have heard murmurs about the Winnipeg transit changes amongst the students, but it's not something that I had been focused on. So with all assignments, I tried to open it up and hear from students what's important to them. Education should be a partnership and a conversation. And Gershon wrote this letter, and he said, I think I didn't do it right, but I read it, and I said, you did it exactly right. This is exactly what this is meant to be. Democracy is about what's important to you and how you feel about how things are working where you live and where you pay taxes and where your family works and pays taxes.
For sure. And it's the one thing we all have in common, right? For all the differences in the world, everybody's riding the bus in Winnipeg and thinking about what this new system is working or not. And we all have city councilors that we share. So how did you feel about writing to the city councilor? Was that because your teacher said this is part of the project? Like, do you think you would have otherwise?
So for me, I actually did it wrong. The project was supposed to be different. And she said all and me, I was like not really paying attention, which is my fault.
You thought because it was supposed to be federal or something?
It was supposed to be federal, I'm pretty sure.
Got it.
And
But she let you swing into this, though.
Yeah, no, I just wrote about something that mattered to me.
Yeah.
About like the roads and the new transit system.
Yeah.
And I showed her the letter and she liked it.
Good. So then it did become part of your project to write to the
did.
counselor. Were you nervous when you wrote to Devi Sharma? That's your area counselor.
Not really.
Okay. So tell me what the response was. You read part of the letter. No worries. Just pick it up. Live radio. Tell me a little bit about what the response was when you wrote to Devi Sharma.
So when I wrote to her, same day I got an email, and then the next day I got a phone call, and
From her?
It was from her executive assistant.
Okay.
But I don't know if the email was directly from her, but it was an email talking, and it was about we would like to speak to you. From Devi Sharma's, I think it was either her or her executive assistant.
Okay. And were you satisfied with the response you got to your concerns?
Not really. So when we eventually did get on the phone and I was talking to him, it felt like he was he was like kind of dismissive. I felt like I was being dismissed, and he was giving me like very vague direction into like the things I was saying.
What kind of research did you include in your letter to Councillor Sharma? Because you looked up some data too.
So I had an article about how the transit system is expected to lose 8.5 million in fare revenue and how ridership went down by 14%.
Mm-hmm.
And when I showed these stats to her executive assistant, he was quite unfamiliar with them and and it felt like I was being dismissed.
Okay. And you also included some things about climate change as one of the concerns in your letter. How come you did that?
So like me, and I think a lot of Canadians, we hear about going green by 2050, net zero emissions. But how can we go net zero emissions when we're forcing people back into our cars?
Yeah. What do you hope the city does out of hearing your concerns? You said your immediate, interaction was a bit disappointing, but what do you hope might come out of it?
I hope we get a simpler a transit system like we had before. Like the transit system is something you could rely on. It should be reliable, accessible, and a lifeline. It shouldn't be something that's ruined by overcomplication or that's just like business trying to make profit and is constantly cost cutting without the people in mind.
CBC reached out to the office of Councillor Devi Sharma for comment. She says she welcomes Gershon to send questions, hopes you can have a conversation moving forward and share dialogue about feedback. She's appreciative hearing from residents around city issues, particularly youth, she said. But then the city sent us stats. So I want to get your take on this because you were saying that, your new routes are 37 and 336. Those are the buses you're supposed to be taking. Mm-hmm. So the city said that according to their data, those buses are on time, and their version, I should say, of on time, not version, pardon me, how they quantify on time here is 1 minute early or 5 minutes late. So in that window, 76% of the time and 68% of the time, and are only late 12% of the time and 11% of the time, which is better than average. What's your response to that?
My response to that is the time, okay, we can deal with that. We live in Winnipeg. The climate here is bad. The bus being late, okay, we get that. But it being ruined by overcomplication, that's where the real problem begins. Because there's no need to change multiple buses just to get to where you're going.
Well, I think when we looked into it because you have your personal experience, but in class we always talk about how we can connect that to the data and the research, which is important. And I think, what did you find? How many stops were, were removed?
Yeah, so there was approximately 1,200 stops cut around the city.
Yeah.
And for such a city in such a cold climate, requiring people to walk so far in the cold, whereas the issue with wait time at the stop, that could be solved with bus shelters, with, solving with warming huts or something like this that we could think of as what this city could be in the future.
Well, thank you very much for both coming in. What will stay with me this morning is there's 6 carpools on your street and you're taking an Uber to class. I mean, that's
is an American tech company.
And when I do take Uber, less money stays local.
Yeah. Thank you both. We're going to see what happens with this and more. Nice to meet you, Gershon.
Yeah, thank you.
And to you as well, Chantal. Thank you,
Marcy.
That was Maple's collegiate student Gershon Manku and his teacher Chantal Ramraj. They spoke with the CBC's Marcy Marcusa earlier this year. And an update to that story, one of the buses on Gershon's route did make the list for some improvements by the city. We'll have to check in with him next month to see if it will be enough to give up Uber. And next week, we are hoping to hear from the city of Winnipeg about another transit change, as some students will now be able to take the bus for free. Time now is 6:24, and next up here on the show, when it comes to leaving behind a financial legacy, what you do right now matters. People may think about leaving a will, but according to experts, key additional information commonly gets overlooked. Pulling all of your important financial material together in one place can be a real gift to those dealing with your estate. Personal finance columnist Rubina Ahmed Haq explains the importance of a succession binder.
American comedian Des Bishop recently talked about his mom dying, using his stand-up to take on a serious topic. Sometimes there's truth in comedy that can't be denied. Here he is giving his audience some hacks on dealing with a loved one's passing.
And I want to give you guys some modern death advice. This is very important, okay? Because some of you guys are going to deal with this. Number one thing you need to know, get the passwords. This is the most important thing you need to know.
The stand-up comedian does a whole bit about the lengths he had to go to get all of his mother's affairs sorted out because she left almost no critical information behind. But jokes aside, financial planner Gabriel Leclerc says the entertainer is onto something.
What we do is we always provide our clients with a succession binder.
Leclerc says having all your documents in one place can save your loved one's time and hassle when you pass away, especially the executor and power of attorney for your estate. He gives an example of the lengths he sometimes goes to get information after someone's death.
We've had instances where we have to submit a death certificate to every insurance company in the country to find out if they had a policy with them. So all of that work can be done ahead of time in order to make sure that we make it as easy as possible for the executors.
When life insurance policies go unclaimed by beneficiaries, those surviving are deprived of tax-exempt funds that otherwise would have eased their financial burden. Leclerc suggests ensuring the following essential paperwork is organized within your succession binder.
All their pertinent financial information, which is a copy of their will, statements of their investments, recent tax returns, names of their accountants and lawyers, any power of attorneys, bank accounts, which banks they deal with, just a central place that all their information is easily accessible so that whomever is in charge or the executors can have the names and the individuals that they can contact to let them know that the person has passed away.
He does caution against moving money in or out of an account of a deceased loved one. That can be considered fraud. Leclerc says check with what you can and can't do with a professional like an advisor.
My husband's uncle passed away and he had a will, but he had not recorded or organized any information outside of that.
Erin Burry is the CEO of Willful, an online estate and will company. She says her company was born out of a real-life experience. Burry says the succession binder should have a copy of your will, but also other information needed to access your accounts, information her relative did not leave behind.
He probably thought, I have a will, I'm organized, but it was all of the other pieces that really left us in the the lurch. And so this can have real consequences. If I don't know that you banked at a small digital bank or that you had cryptocurrency in a digital wallet, I might not ever contact those people as your executor or your family member. I might not know that you have money in a PayPal wallet sitting in the cloud. And that might mean that there are assets that are never discovered, that just sit there and are eventually reclaimed by the government.
Stand-up comic Bishop describes his experience in his humorous way.
They die, you have no idea the heartache you will deal with, right? Calls to banks, lines at banks, emails, bureaucracy, torturous admin trying to get your parents' money. So please.
Talking about death, especially your own, is never easy. But the reality is, when someone passes away, having your affairs in order will make it easier for those grieving. Financial advisor LeClaire agrees more information is better than leaving your loved ones guessing. For CBC Radio, I'm Rubina Ahmed-Haq.
Thank you very much, Rabina. Well, still to come here on Information Radio, we've got our business report just ahead. And we are getting word this morning of the first major layoff tied to the U.S. tariffs. So we're going to get the details on where those layoffs are happening. Also, we've been hearing, of course, a lot of gloomy news for the Canadian economy, but a new report is offering an optimistic vision of what Canada could achieve. So we're going to dig into that report as well. Right now, commute pretty quiet overall, but if you do see something going on, you can give us a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio One. Time now for your CBC News from Manitoba.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. It is going to be a gorgeous late August day. Lots of sunshine today, a seasonal high of 23. A candle company in Winnipeg hopes to get through the latest round of American tariffs largely unscathed. That's because it has diversified its client base and supply chain after the first time President Donald Trump threatened tariffs. CBC's Rosanna Hempel reports.
We basically went cold turkey.
Farmer Sun stopped selling to the United States entirely, the first time American tariffs were applied to Canadian exports last year. The business stopped sourcing materials from there too. Here's co-owner Dan Mitchell.
We just said, you know what, it's not worth it. If it means finding new partners, finding ways to just protect our business, that's the smartest move for us.
He says it wasn't easy, but the hard work has mostly paid off. Candles are among the Canadian goods facing a 50% tariff. It meant changing their whole business model. They expanded their retail store and now source materials and new products from Canada, Asia, and Europe.
We have eliminated a lot of the risk of having so many eggs in one basket.
The Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce says other industries are trying to do more business within Canada too. They say not all can stop trading so easily with the U.S., Manitoba's #1 customer. Rosanna Hempel, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Some Manitoba pop-up markets are sounding the alarm about scammers posing as them to try to steal money from businesses.
When I first saw it, I thought, this is pretty well written. I couldn't see how you could easily get scammed.
Holiday Alley co-founder Shirley Muir. The annual Winter Festival in Selkirk hosts a craft market. Muir says one of its regular vendors received an email from a scammer inviting them to Holiday Alley.
The owners of the store got a hold of us, asked us if this was a scam. We looked at it, we said absolutely it was, and then we immediately notified a very large database of marketers that we have to let them know that this was going on and to protect themselves.
Other organizations have reported scammers pretending to be them through email as well, including the Manitoba Hydro Santa Parade and Third and Bird Urban Market. Officials in Nepal and Tibet say the number of people missing from yesterday's flash flood has risen to more than 1,300. Among them, 25 Canadians. More than 270 people are dead after a torrent of floodwater and mud swept through several communities. A woman weeping in a crowded courtyard outside a hospital in Kathmandu, one of many waiting in anguish for news of loved ones. Nepal has deployed more than 2,000 troops to search for survivors, but rescue efforts are being hindered by rain, geography, and swaths of deep mud. Shrinkala Thapa is with the Red Cross in Nepal. She says the scale of this disaster is still emerging.
Some of the parts where this disaster happened is very difficult to reach. The extension of information and how the disaster is impacting and what kind of resources would be required to recover is still yet to come, and looks like it's much, much bigger than what it looked like in like 2 days of time.
And there is concern a build of debris in rivers could cause a second flood. You can hear the latest on this story as well as other national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. Child safety advocates are not convinced a massive court settlement involving social media giant Meta will mean better protection for young people online. Meta has agreed to pay up to $18 billion to settle a lawsuit launched by dozens of U.S. states. They allege the owner of Facebook and Instagram has deliberately designed its platforms to be addictive to children and teens. Meta has agreed to strengthen child safety measures and give parents more user-friendly controls. But Jacques Marcoux at the Canadian Centre for Child Protection in Winnipeg doesn't expect to see a lot has changed.
Fundamentally, what is needed is more than just a bunch of lawsuits. What we need is the creation of legal frameworks that impose actual duties of care, responsibilities onto the tech industry, which is something we currently don't have.
Marcoux also notes because this is a U.S. court case, it's not clear if Meta would apply the same measures in Canada. Assiniboine Park Zoo has a lot of hope in a new addition, a male red panda born in June. Officials hope the cub helps the endangered species grow in numbers. This week, the 10-week-old has started venturing out of the nest he shares with his mom. Animal Health Director Charlene Berkvins says if visitors get to see him, they'll be lucky.
We're not going to force him to come out. He has access. He can come out if he wants. He probably will start spending more and more time outside. But, he's just starting to experience it. So he'll have to build up that confidence with zoo visitors and stuff like that.
This is the 36th red panda born at Winnipeg Zoo since 2003. And if you want to see him, you don't have to go to the zoo just yet while he's still considering if he's going to come out. We do have photos, and they are awfully cute. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Can confirm, very cute. Those red pandas, when you see them at the zoo, we go quite often because we've got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
And when even just you don't even need just the adult red pandas are very friend shaped, as the kids would say. Very cute.
They're very what shaped?
Friend shaped. Yeah, like they're cuddly. They just look so cuddly. Very friend shaped.
That is the cutest description.
Yes, they are. Well, thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That's Heather Wells at your CBC News Desk. Well, I'm Corey Funk in for Marcy Marcusa. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. And Abby Adiemi is in now with your weather. Hello.
Hello, Corey. We're looking at a beautiful day today. Lots of sunshine already making its presence felt across the province. We're talking about from north to south. We will have lots of sunshine today, all the way from the southern border to the coast in the northern region. Here in the Red River Valley region, Winnipeg, we're looking at clear conditions, temperatures sitting around 15, 16 degrees at the Forks and 8 still at the airport. It will be a mainly sunny day. We warm up to 23 later, and then all the regions in the south, we're seeing similar clear conditions. Some areas still getting those partly cloudy skies, but it's more of like a cool morning. We're seeing temperatures between 7 and 11. Looking at the Pembina Valley region, Modern Winkler, Altoona Morris, we're seeing temperatures just near 12 degrees there before warming up to 24 later. In the Westman region, Brandon and surrounding areas, we're still seeing 7, 6 in some areas, climbing all the way to 26 later. Then you track it into the Parkland region, where we're seeing 9 degrees in the Dauphin area, expecting a mainly sunny day. Highs would be around 23 degrees. Gimli, good morning. You're looking at 10 degrees right now for the Interlake region, also expecting a mainly sunny day, high 23. Then we go into the northern region. We're seeing clear skies also there. Some regions waking up to fog patches, but that should dissipate as you get into the morning with temperatures just sitting between 3 and 12 degrees. The power flim, we're looking at temperatures around 12 degrees now. Sunny conditions already there, heading to a high of 24. Norway House at 8, warming to 21. Thompson at 3, warming to 21. Also, Lynn Lake reaches about 22 degrees today. Gilliam sits at 11 degrees, warming to about 19. While for the Tuduli Lake area, we're looking at 6 degrees, 7, some areas saying 9, warming to 19 later. Then Churchill, we're seeing 11 there. Some breezy conditions from the northwest, and we get to 14 today. So overall, I call it a day of lots of sunshine across board. Winnipeg right now, 15 of the Forks. We're seeing clear conditions, and the sun is already making its way out. We'll get to 23 later.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
Sierra Sanders in now with a look at your commute.
Corey, when you were talking about your kids talking like about the pandas and saying why are they friend shaped, I sometimes feel that way about animals that are, if not, I like to say if not friend, why friend shaped?
Exactly, like
about like a bear.
Yeah, or like rhinos or something.
Exactly, like I want to pet you.
Yeah.
I want to be your friend.
They look like they would be great to hug, but you shouldn't.
You shouldn't. Exactly, that's the thing. Exactly. And so far, the commute out there is your friend. I'm not hearing about any major backups or stalls right now. But again, it's still quite early here in the morning drive. So if that does change, I'd love to hear from you. So give me a call on that CBC commuter line. That number is 204-788-3093.
Thank you very much, Sierra. That is Sierra Sanders, the CBC studio director. Well, up next year on Information Radio, Neil Herland is in with a look at your business report. Hi there.
Good morning, Corey. You know, I just Googled red panda. It is the cutest thing ever.
It might actually be probably the top 5 cutest animals probably on the earth, pretty sure.
Yeah. And, you know, my cousin just started volunteering this week at the Minneapolis Zoo, so I think he'll have access to all the cute animals this week.
Oh, I'm very jealous. Maybe that's how I can maybe cuddle a panda. That's maybe that's a good suggestion. I'll look into that.
I got an in there.
Okay. Well, let's move to something much less adorable. We're talking about the trade war, of course. America's top negotiator is challenging the Canadian narrative on why the tariff talks collapse. So what's he saying?
Well, U.S. Trade Rep Jameson Greer spoke to CBC's chief political correspondent Rosemary Barton yesterday in his first one-on-one interview with a Canadian news outlet since the trade talks broke down last Friday. Now, unlike his boss, U.S. President Donald Trump, there was no antagonistic rhetoric towards Canada, no talk of renaming Lake Ontario Lake America. In fact, he presented a sober, calm explanation of what happened from his perspective. Here's a clip from the interview.
To me, there was an agreement. There was a way to get to it. I don't know what ended up happening. You read things in the press about premiers and different things like this and politics going on. I don't know. All I know is this was Canada's had the best deal. We offered an even better deal. Yeah. It would have been a springboard for future progress for us. And now that's gone away.
So Greer disputes the Carney government's assertion that the U.S. made last-minute demands or tried to change the terms of the tentative deal that was reached last Tuesday. He says it was Canada that made additional requests. As for the possibility of returning to the negotiating table, Greer says he was not in contact with Dominic LeBlanc, the Minister of Canada-U.S. Trade. And finally, he pushed back on the suggestion that the issue of making French content easier to discover on American streaming sites in Canada was a deal breaker.
We're also getting word this morning of the first major layoff tied to the U.S. tariffs. It's a factory in Quebec. It's laying off hundreds of workers in a small town. So what are the details there?
Yeah, so the Rayonier Advanced Materials Plant, or RYAM factory in Temiskaming, Quebec, is laying off 400 workers. The American owner of the plant is blaming the new tariffs imposed by the United States. The company makes pulp and cardboard. It also makes filters. Now, these layoffs take effect September 15th. They will keep some workers on there just to maintain a wastewater treatment plant and a boiler, but 400 workers will be furloughed. This is devastating news for Temiskaming, which only has a population of 2,300 people. And it follows another wave of layoffs in the region at the same company 2 years ago. That decision resulted in 275 job losses, so a big blow to a small town in northwestern Quebec.
So as we just heard, lots of gloomy news for the Canadian economy lately. But there is a new report out that's offering some optimism of what Canada could achieve. So just tell us a little about that.
Yeah, so there's a report from TD Economics, and it argues that Canada could trigger a decade-long investment supercycle. You might have noticed a lot of mega projects being announced by the Carney government and by provinces right across the country. Right now, there's over $1 trillion in projects on the books for Canada. That includes everything from a West Coast pipeline to a modernizing of the NORAD defense system. What TD argues is that now is the time to spend even more, between 1.5 and 1.7 trillion. Now, that kind of money wouldn't come from the government. It would require investment from banks and foreign capital, but the economists at TD say the payoff would be significant, boosting annual GDP growth to 2% or even 2.5%.
Thank you very much, Neil.
You're welcome.
That's Neil Herland with your business news. Well, we got to talk more about that little baby panda. This little baby red panda is venturing out into the world from its nest at Assiniboine Park Zoo. And the baby cub was born on June 8th, but it could still be a while before you can actually see him. Now, CBC's Brittany Greenslade spoke with Charlene Burkvins, the director of animal health at the Assiniboine Park Conservancy.
Our little man is 10 weeks old now. So the little red panda baby is just a little over 10 weeks, and he started coming out of the nest box, venturing out. It sounded like mom was encouraging / bringing him, forcing the adventure. But yeah, he's out. He's fluffy. He's adorable. We did his vaccines last week, his first set of vaccines last week, and he's over 1 kilogram already. He has very strong lungs. He does not appreciate being picked up, but he's doing really well otherwise.
Tell me a little bit about the nest box and how long they spend in there and really why.
Yeah, they are a species that are, moms give birth in the nest box. We sometimes have them go back and forth between multiples, but this mom has primarily kept him in one. It's a wooden box that she feels comfortable with. Sometimes they build a little bit of a nest. Sometimes they don't build much of a nest. This is her first opportunity to raise a baby. She's just over 4. And she's done wonderful with them. She loves them to bits. She's very protective. For the longest time, we couldn't get in there to get a weight on him because she would immediately go in the box, and we were like, okay, we'll leave you alone. We couldn't convince her to to go outside and allow us to do much with him early on. But she's slowly gotten more comfortable and trusting that he's still going to be there when she comes back.
Do we have a name for the little guy yet?
No, not yet. They haven't. Actually, I don't think the naming contest has gone out. I've seen the potential list, but I think they picked the gibbon. I think they picked the gibbon last week name, but I think the red panda one's probably gonna wait.
All right, so we will have to wait. Something to look forward to. This little guy was kind of made possible through this breeding program that the zoo does. Tell us a little bit about how many breeding programs you have and why you guys do it.
Yeah, the red pandas are part of a species survival program, which connects multiple facilities across North America that have red pandas, and the main aim of them is trying to maximize the genetic potential of the individuals that are in care so that we, avoid inbreeding. We try to make sure that we maintain enough of a population that it's sustainable so that we, don't get ourselves into a situation where there aren't any more. So it's a great program to be involved in. The SSP program has sort of changed a little bit in the last few years through the AZA, through the American Zoo and Aquarium Association. So we do have less species in SSPs now, but that's primarily because AZA has tried to decrease the number and make sure that the ones that they have are sustainable. They have enough animals within the SSP that they don't have to worry that numbers are so low that it's not necessarily worth the resources to put into some of those that they don't have the numbers to properly sustain. So the red pandas are one that we currently have. Snow leopards is another. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about red pandas? I know that they are endangered in the wild and there's less than 2,500 or so in the wild still.
Yeah, they are species that are struggling, but they have some unique needs, unique diet. They are bamboo eaters. We do celebrate International Red Panda Day coming up in September, and I think historically we've tried to keep the naming contest for that day. So there are opportunities to support red pandas in the wild through the Red Panda Network and the Red Panda Safe. So we typically try to work with those programs to help with the conservation in situ.
It's funny because, the Assiniboine Park Zoo's Facebook page is definitely one that we trust. When we saw the video, we all thought it looked like AI or a puppet. Like he was too cute, and it did not look like it was real.
Yeah, when they're born, they're kind of gray in color, and so as those guard hairs grow out, they don't look quite real. They look more like a little stuffed toy. Yeah, knock on wood, he's real.
Certainly very, very cute.
Yeah.
So a chance now that people can come out and see him. One of the things that I was reading is that he has started to become a bit more active. You said, on that first day, it seemed like mom kind of had to force him out to be adventurous. Are we noticing that he's spending more time outdoors and getting a bit more comfortable?
Yes, it does sound like he's coming outside more. I think if you get to see him, you're lucky. We definitely can't guarantee it, and we're not going to force him to come out. He has access. He can come out if he wants. He probably will start spending more and more time outside. But at the moment, he's just getting his feet wet. Well, hopefully not too wet. But he's just starting to experience it. So he'll have to build up that confidence with zoo visitors and stuff like that.
That's CBC's Brittany Greenslade speaking with Charlene Burkvins of the Assiniboine Park Conservancy. And boy, oh boy, is that baby panda ever cute. You can check out our CBC Manitoba YouTube page. We were just rolling some videos and pictures of that baby panda, the baby red panda that they had. So you definitely should go check that out. Well, still to come here on Information Radio this next hour or so, there is lots going on, as you can imagine. A growing number of provinces are doing away with time changes, or they are considering it, including here in Manitoba. So we're going to find out why the trend is a headache for some religious groups, including some religious groups here in Winnipeg. Also, it's a sticky situation for the retailers who sold maple syrup from a Quebec company that's now being called fake and now face a potential class action lawsuit. So we're going to hear from a Manitoba producer about what the impact of that lawsuit could be here in Manitoba. He actually has a very rare stand of just Manitoba maples. So we're going to hear from him coming up this next hour here on Information Radio. But right now, though, the Canada's auto industry is facing more uncertainty as trade tensions with the U.S. continue. The U.S. is already imposing 25% tariffs on Canadian cars and auto parts. And earlier this week, U.S. President Donald Trump threatened to raise those tariffs to 50%. Now, yesterday, Industry Minister Melanie Joly said Ottawa is talking to automakers and knows many workers are anxious. And joining me now to talk about what this means for Canada and its auto industry is Greg Layson. He's a digital and mobile editor for the Automotive News Canada. Good morning.
Good morning.
How seriously should the auto industry be taking Donald Trump's latest threat of 50% tariffs?
Seriously enough. I heard a lobbyist once say, always take Donald Trump seriously, but don't always take him literally. So when he makes this sensational threat, it usually means he has a serious issue with the other party he's dealing with. And so he sets the bar incredibly high to get a concession that he considers a win. So should Canada take this 50% threat seriously? Absolutely. Do I think it takes effect at 50% on January 1st? Probably not. That's because the North American auto industry needs two things, certainty and runway, and this provides neither. USMCA in flux, 25% tariffs going to 50% tariffs, maybe 4 months from now, maybe. automakers can't operate and plan billion-dollar decisions if they don't know what lies ahead.
So there are 25% tariffs already in place. How has that been affecting Canada's auto industry?
There's been an effect, no doubt about it. GM has shifted one entire shift's worth of truck production to Indiana from Ontario. Honda's moved about 30,000 units of Civic production to Ohio from Ontario. Our production was down last year. The flip side of that coin, our reciprocal tariffs are doing damage to the U.S. auto industry. Their exports were down 22% from a year earlier. But Stellantis has added a shift in Windsor, so there's been some positive news. The effect isn't necessarily going to be immediate. It's losing future investment in Canada.
So
when a factory needs to retool, for example, an automaker isn't going to commit because it doesn't know what lies ahead.
So then is that 25% tariff sustainable?
In a way, it has been, and I think the auto industry believes it's going to go away. So even in the short term, sustainable. Honda, for example, admitted this week it hasn't passed the costs on to its consumers. Other automakers have also given higher incentives for cash purchases to offset costs of tariffs, and still other automakers are spreading out the costs of those tariffs over all vehicles. So if you export a vehicle from Canada to the United States, that import cost in America is being spread out over, say, 25 vehicles in a products portfolio. So it's been weathered. I wouldn't say it's sustainable.
So as you mentioned there, we've already seen some companies shift production from Canada to the U.S., and Trump is actually pushing for more.
If you build in a factory in Michigan or someplace in our country and make your automobiles or trucks right here in America, you pay zero tax and zero tariff. You pay zero tariff.
So that's Donald Trump last month at an auto plant in Michigan. Is it inevitable we'll see more production shift to the U.S., you think?
I don't think you're going to see current production shift. So, for example, you're not going to see an automaker close a factory in Ontario and build a new one in the United States. The cost is just too much. I mean, it's $7 billion to build a factory to make, say, minivans for Stellantis. And at the same time, you have to adjust the supply chains of 30,000 parts that go into these vehicles. So that just can't be done overnight, and it can't be done in a cost-effective way. But where we see a shift possible and probable is future products. So an empty factory in Ontario in Brampton, owned by Stellantis, might not get a new product mandate because of current tariffs and future tariffs and the uncertainty of USMCA. You know, Honda admits it needs a new factory somewhere in North America. It's at full capacity when it comes to production. But it said this week, we are not announcing a new factory until there is a fully fledged, ironclad trade deal, an update to the USMCA. So it's not necessarily about moving things that are happening now and being built now. It's about what is built in the future and where.
So what can Ottawa do now to support Canada's auto sector and keep companies investing here?
Get back to the negotiating table. I mean, both sides of this thing need to sit down and hammer out and come to an agreement over the current situation and then move on to the USMCA. That is first and foremost, getting us back as close to zero as possible. And there are auto executives who believe we're never going back to zero tariffs on automotive, but it has to be lower and it has to be set in stone. That's number one. Once that is in place, you need to make Canada as an attractive place to do business as possible. And that means investing in and giving loans to or taxpayer money to, as much as that hurts to hear as a taxpayer, to the industry to help offset these costs, to make Brampton a viable place to make the next generation of something for Stellantis. And in the short term, you have to support the workers who are on layoff. And there are thousands across Ingersoll and Brampton who are still laid off, some of them since 2023.
And finally here, we're seeing different views from Canadian and U.S. auto unions. What role do they play in all this?
I mean, they basically have the same role in each country. They're fighting for the jobs. You know, the auto industry is a strange one in that it's integrated from aluminum plants and stamping in Quebec all the way down to, somewhere in Mexico where vehicles are assembled. But while it's integrated in that way, all three federal governments are fighting for new investment. The unions are fighting to keep jobs. Look, I say, the UAW, United Auto Workers, are not anti-Canada. They're pro-UAW. And Unifor is not anti-American. They are pro-Unifor. They're fighting for the jobs for their members. Sean Fain, head of UAW, and his members voted for Trump, helped him win, and realized that tariffs could be a tool in a toolbox to land more investment. But even they think 50% has gone too far and is damaging to the auto industry. But at the end, they're all fighting for jobs and fighting for their members.
Well, Greg, thanks for your time this morning. Appreciate it.
Anytime.
Greg Layson is the digital and mobile editor for Automotive News Canada. Well, time now for news headlines with Heather Wells.
Well, the owners of a Brandon bakery are frustrated and out cash after learning they'd fallen for an online scam. Wheat City Wheatless Goods were excited to get an email inviting them to register for the Assiniboia Downs Market night market. The owner, though, after sending an e-transfer to the emailer, found that wasn't the email for the actual market. We'll hear more about that story and other news from Manitoba coming up at 7:30.
Thank you very much, Heather. Well, quiet commute overall out there. We haven't heard of any major issues yet, but if you do see something going on, you can always give us a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093. Right now, Winnipeg, we're sitting at 15, heading for a lovely mild high of 23 today, mainly sunny. Very similar forecast pretty much right across the province. I'll have more details for you coming up. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio One. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. We'll be back after World Report. Stay tuned.
On the current. They have taken advantage of the United States for many decades, actually.
I'm Susan Ormiston. A lot of Canadians are worried about the trade dispute with the United States. But what are Americans thinking? The splits in the U.S. between support for Donald Trump's policies and fear over their effects coming up on The Current.
The Current. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. The death toll in Nepal continues to rise. Nepali police say at least 353 people are dead after torrential flooding along the country's border with Tibet. Rescue workers desperately racing to find survivors. Entire villages have been wiped away, and rescue efforts in the Himalayan region are being made all the more difficult due to the terrain. Among the hundreds of people missing, 25 Canadians. The CBC's Willie Lowry has the latest from London.
A woman sits in the bucket of a backhoe, mud caked to her face. Two rescue workers hold her hand as a powerful machine fights through thick cement-like mud. Emergency crews are in a race against time and battling geography as they attempt to find hundreds of missing people in Nepal and Tibet. Dhananjay Rajmi is a Nepali MP.
Looking at the flood on the villages and all the settlements, I'm really terrified that this is one of the biggest devastation that had ever happened in Nepal.
Among the missing are hundreds of foreign nationals, many on hiking trips in the remote region, including 25 Canadians. The flood destroyed entire villages, wiped away much of the area's infrastructure, making the already remote area even more inaccessible. Bishalnath Upreti is the president of the Nepal Center for Disaster Management.
Now, the biggest problem I see from today onwards is how do we bring the relief materials there? So it's such a huge population and so scattered, so not a lot of people can go there for relief work, distribution and all that.
Scientists believe the flood was likely caused by a huge chunk of glacial ice breaking off, leading to a massive slide of ice, mud and rock that ripped through the area's rivers, communities and infrastructure. Willie Lowry, CBC News, London.
Police in northern France are securing the area around the Caen railway station. This is where investigators say a driver deliberately rammed his car into a group of pedestrians late last night. One person is dead, 10 others injured, 7 of them critically. Local authorities say the incident was not a terrorist attack. Instead, they believe it was the result of a local street fight that turned violent. The suspect is currently in custody, and a police investigation is underway. With U.S.-Canada trade talks stalled, Ottawa is scrambling to build defences elsewhere. Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne is meeting his Indian counterpart in Toronto to broaden ties. It's ahead of Prime Minister Mark Carney's address to the EU next month. Meanwhile, Intergovernmental Affairs Minister Dominic LeBlanc is in Iqaluit working on internal barriers to boost trade across Canada. CBC's Rafi Boudjikanian joins us from Ottawa. So, Rafi, provinces often guard their own industries. So how willing are leaders to drop barriers given the urgency of this trade war?
Well, John, willing to drop is a big phrase. Let's talk about what the objectives are on paper. So the Intergovernmental Affairs Minister's office says they're looking at getting rid of labor mobility to better support workers, so make it easier for professionals to have their credentials recognized if they move from one province or territory to another. A second big objective is to harmonize approvals for prefabricated homes and building materials. It's 2 days of meetings. They want to sign this memorandum of understanding by the end, start tackling these issues with legislation starting next year. Worth noting, though, earlier this year, 9 out of 10 provinces introduced direct-to-consumer alcohol sales to move each other's products across their borders, everyone except Quebec, which said it's interested in joining on later along with the Yukon. So there has been some movement on these fronts.
All right, that's the internal story. Ottawa also, though, trying to expand its international trade relationships. How fast can these international deals actually cushion the blow for businesses hit by U.S. tariffs?
So again, this will depend on the level of seriousness these different countries tackle this challenge with. Everyone is trying to figure out how to navigate the world of the Trump 2.0 administration. Canada's not alone, so that will provide incentive to collaborate faster. But at the same time, there are big challenges. With India, for instance, the RCMP is still investigating the murder of Canadian citizen Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a Sikh separatist activist, on Canadian soil, right? An act that allegedly involved agents of the Indian government, something that it denies. So there's a difficult ethical fine line for Canada to walk here, to say the least. Ottawa's also facing pressure, it says, from the U.S., which, according to Canadian officials, tried to place restrictions on Canada internationally expanding trade, something the American side, of course, is denying, John.
Rafi Boudjikanian in Ottawa. Thanks for this, Rafi.
You're welcome.
New Brunswick is reopening a divisive debate about natural gas extraction. The province will look at ending a moratorium on fracking that's been in place for more than a decade. And as Sam Farley reports, the renewed debate is being fueled by a changing geopolitical environment.
If additional development is worth it, if the juice is worth the squeeze, we need to know what we're working with.
New Brunswick Premier Susan Holt says it's time to put the natural gas question back on the table. The province has had a moratorium since 2014. That followed intense protests over possible health and environmental risks. Now, Holt is launching a 5-month review of whether to lift it.
This is, in fact, the start of a conversation, one that we want to have with you.
The review will look at what gas deposits exist in New Brunswick and whether technology has changed enough to address concerns. Natural Resources Minister John Herron was quick to say it's not a foregone conclusion.
I will say loud and clear, if we can't be certain that this can be done safely, it won't be done at all.
Herron says revenue from natural gas could fund other government priorities,
like collaborative healthcare clinics in your communities, or better healthcare access.
A group representing Mi'kmaq First Nation says they will take part in the review, but that does not mean they will agree to anything yet. Provincial Green Party leader David Kuhn says he's disappointed.
The words climate change didn't even pass the Premier's lips. So I don't know what world she's living in.
Holt's government is planning to make a decision on the moratorium in January. Sam Farley, CBC News, Fredericton.
They're the unassuming sensory toys taking the world by storm, but so-called squishies, or squishy dumplings, popular with children and young adults, have health and safety authorities on alert. Chemical and burn risks are now seeing some countries take action, though as Thalia Sarb reports, Canada is yet to follow.
What?
Squeals of surprise as soft, palm-sized toys are being filmed unboxed, squeezed, then shared online. This is Squishy Mania. But high demand for the brand name products has prompted an influx of cheaper and potentially hazardous fakes to hit the market.
It's cheap for a reason.
University of Toronto professor and chemist Miriam Diamond says it has amplified the risk of the unknown, with toy manufacturers not obligated to disclose ingredients.
There could be chemicals there that are fairly benign, but there could also be chemicals that are of concern.
Australia and the US are cracking down at their borders to seize counterfeit toys amid growing safety concerns. Among them, cases of skin burns when the toy overheats and explodes. A UK study also found unsafe levels of toxic carcinogen benzene in some. But product safety group Consumer Reports says it's not just about counterfeits.
We're actually seeing incidents of products that are happening that are purchased directly from retail.
Health Canada is reviewing more than 30 reports from the last 4 months regarding harsh odours, skin irritation and headaches from various squishies. But the federal body says it has not confirmed there is specific risk. Amazon Canada has removed some off-brand dumpling-shaped versions. For now, experts advise to keep the toys away from hot areas and surfaces and inspect them regularly, monitoring for leaks. Talia Sav, CBC News, Toronto.
And finally, pioneering polka dot-loving Japanese artist Yayoi Kusama has died. Her paintings, installations, and sculptures have been drawing crowds around the world for decades. In 2023, Kusama launched a collaboration with luxury brand Louis Vuitton. This woman traveled to the Champs-Élysées for the big reveal.
Louis Vuitton has this love for her and her artistic. I think it makes it fun and unique, and it revives the brand, the old brand. It attracts a younger demographic.
Kusama was known for her bold, colorful work, which often featured polka dots. Her studio says she died on August 14th in a hospital in Tokyo. Yayoi Kusama was 97 years old. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Well, good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio One, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. Lovely day ahead. We're going to get the details from Abby, though some rain in the forecast as well tomorrow, so we'll hear about that. But coming up this hour on the show, a local business that makes steel wire products for indoor ice rinks says counter tariffs are just bad for Canadians. We're going to speak to the president of that steel company coming up later this hour. Also, retailers who sold a Quebec brand of maple syrup are now facing a potential class action lawsuit. Will Manitoba producers be affected? We're going to speak to one of them coming up. But up first here on the show, it is 7:10 right now, but should it be that way forever? Some religious groups are hoping that time changes don't go away. We're going to hear why up first here on Information Radio. But right now, though, at 7:11, let's check in with Heather Wells with a look at news headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, advocates for children are skeptical a major court settlement will improve safety for children and youth online. Meta has agreed to pay up to $18 billion and strengthen child safety measures as part of a settlement to a court case. Well, Jacques Marcoux at the Canadian Centre for Child Protection in Winnipeg says it's not clear if these measures will be applied in Canada or whether they'll be effective. If you live near the North End sewage treatment plant, you may notice a bit of a smell in the air over the coming weeks. The City of Winnipeg started operating the newly upgraded Headworks facility yesterday. We'll tell you why it's going to impact what you're smelling in the air coming up in our next local news at 7:30.
Spoiler alert, it's bacteria, which is good PR for bacteria because I've always been told that bacteria makes things stinkier. But apparently in this case, it actually doesn't.
It does the opposite. It actually gets rid of it, yes.
Yeah.
And so they have to wait for that bacteria to grow inside the plant.
Mm-hmm.
Until that happens, you might want to maybe light a candle.
Right. So that means maybe if you just leave it in your gym bag, you're closing your gym bag long enough, the bacteria will actually make things less smelly. Is that how it works?
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll do a little science experiment. I'll let you know.
I
in
wish
a
you
couple
would,
weeks.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That's Heather Wells at your CBC News desk. Well, let's check in now with Abby Adiemi, who's in with a look at your weather. Hi, Abby.
Yes, Corey, you mentioned it earlier. While we enjoy this, 2 days of beautiful sunny conditions, what will come with that? There's a lot of accumulation up there and we will be getting rain, but not today. Tomorrow evening, the rain showers would definitely come and that would be what will take us into the weekend. But before we get those rainy conditions into the weekend, just be prepared for another beautiful Thursday. We're talking about sunshine from the north all the way down to the southern regions this morning. Here in the Red River Valley region, Winnipeg, we are at 15 at this time, 8 at the airports, mainly clear outside, some sunshine on its way. We warm up to 23 later, and that's what we're seeing across the southern regions, 8 to 11 degrees, and most regions will crawl close to 26 degrees. But Winnipeg right now, we're going to 23, and it is 15 at the Forks.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
Sierra Sanders in now with a look at your commute.
Hi, Corey. It's been pretty quiet out there. Haven't heard many ringings of the phone in the studio, or should I say in the control room there for the commuter line. So sounds like things are moving pretty smoothly out there on your drive so far. But if that does change, if there's a new situation or a new backup that's popping up on your commute today, I would love to hear about it. So give me a call on the CBC commuter line. The number's 204-788-3093.
Well, the summer may be winding down, but the days are still relatively long, but soon the darkness will come, and with it, the debate about whether we should change the clocks. BC recently made the move to permanent daylight saving time in March, and the U.S. is also considering the switch. Manitoba, of course, also considering too. It's often a popular move, but there's one perspective we don't hear much about. Views from religious communities, such as Jews and Muslims, whose prayers and religious observances are tied to the cycle of the sun. So here to talk about that is our faith contributor, John Longhurst. Good morning.
Good morning.
So what's the relationship between prayer and the sun for different religious groups?
Well, the sun has been long used by different religious groups to time their prayers and their rituals. So, for example, ancient religions like the Aztec, the Inca, and the Maya, they all used it, and so did the ancient Egyptians. In Canada today, 3 larger religions tied their prayers and rituals to the sun, and that would be Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. And in the Christian tradition, the sun is used to set times for the morning prayers, which are called lauds, and evening prayer, which is called vespers. Observant Jews pray 3 times a day, at sunrise, midday, and sunset. Observant Muslims pray 5 times a day. They start at sunrise, midday, afternoon, sunset, and night. And the purpose of these prayers is to keep God at the center of their daily lives, timing them with the cycle of the sun.
So then how would a change to permanent daylight saving time affect members of these groups?
Well, the practical problem here in Canada is, particularly in northern parts of the country, that solar time, which is when the sun rises and when it sets, and clock time can sometimes get pretty far apart, especially in winter. Now, for Christians, it's really not a major issue, but for Jews and Muslims, morning prayers can only begin when the sun rises. So if daylight savings time was to become permanent in Manitoba, that means in winter prayers would be a problem. That's because the sun wouldn't rise until between 9 and 9:30 a.m. in the dark days of winter. And that's usually when people are already at work or at school. And for Muslims, the sunset prayer would now also fall during their commute home from work. That's why some spiritual leaders are concerned about the move. Carney Shalom Rose is rabbi at Shari Zedek Synagogue here in Winnipeg, and he would prefer year-round permanent standard time.
You know, the conservative movement, the Rabbinical Assembly of the Conservative Movement, of which I'm a member, has expressed support for permanent standard time, right, to align with civil time more closely with the natural circadian rhythms and to minimize disruptions to religious practices.
So if a change is made to permanent daylight savings time all year round here in Manitoba, Rose says Jews in his tradition, well, they'll adapt, even if there are challenges.
Regardless, we will most assuredly find a way to continue our unyielding support of thrice daily worship.
Yosef Benrock is an Orthodox rabbi here in Winnipeg. For Orthodox Jews, a move to permanent daylight savings time would make it difficult for people to get to their morning prayers at his synagogue.
That would be very problematic for them, because then it would mean that prayers would have to start very late in the winter when people need to get to work. So that would really be a huge challenge. I don't think that our synagogue in Winnipeg, again, we need a quorum of 10 men, but if this would change, I don't think that we could get a quorum of 10 men at 8 o'clock in the morning. I think that would be very hard to do.
So if the change happens, he believes that Orthodox Jews would also adapt, as they have over the centuries.
So what about Muslims?
I spoke with Sikander Hashmi about it. Sikander is the executive director of the Canadian Council of Imams. He also has concerns about a change to permanent daylight savings time.
So when the clocks are adjusted, the prayer times also need to be adjusted by an hour, which essentially means that, if you're having sunset at around 6 p.m., all of a sudden it starts happening at 5 p.m.
So whatever time is chosen to be permanent, he says, Muslims, they'll also adjust. If it's permanent daylight savings time, he says, well, at least there will be consistency with prayer times throughout the year.
Friday prayers happen during the day, normally at the time of Dhuhr prayer, of the midday prayer. And that timing for many mosques across the country, jumps back and forth as the time changes twice a year. So having daylight time throughout the year would mean that timing would be fairly consistent, would not change as much.
So what about other religions? How would they be impacted?
Well, if daylight savings time becomes permanent, everyone who follows a daily prayer ritual that's tied to the sun would see their winter prayer times start an hour later. So in addition to Christians, Jews, and Muslims, groups that would also be affected would be observant Sikhs and Hindus. But choosing one permanent time, whether it's standard or daylight savings time, would at least make life simpler for everyone in one aspect. Faith groups would no longer have to remind people twice a year to change their clocks for their prayers or to get to their services on time.
I was late for church a couple times as a kid. I remember that being a thing.
This would fix it.
Well, thank you very much, John.
You bet. Thank you.
That's John Longhurst, a freelance faith reporter based here in Winnipeg.
Manitoba is a conversation that never stops. From your first coffee with information radio to the midday pulse of Radio Noon and the drive home with Up to Speed. Don't let your day get in the way of your favorite shows. Just open the CBC News app, tap the local drop-down, and hit play. Bring your community with you. Download the CBC News app and stay live with us.
7:20 right now, and still to come here on Information Radio. Just ahead in your sports report, we're going to hear about some history that was made in volleyball last night. But right now, as you've been hearing, we've lost another music icon. It was announced yesterday that Tim Curry has died. He was the best known for his role as Dr. Frank N. Furter in the Rocky Horror Picture Show. We've got a song from that film for you now. This is Tim Curry with I'm Going Home.
On the day I went away, was all I had to say. I want to come again and stay. Smile, and that will mean I'm there. 'Cause I've seen, blue skies through the tears in my eyes, and I realize I'm going home. everywhere. It's been the same. Like I'm outside in the rain, free to try and find the game. Cards for sorrow, cards for pain. 'Cause I've seen blue skies through the tears in my eyes, and I realize I'm going home. I'm going home. I'm going home. I'm going
From the Rocky Horror Picture Show, that was Tim Curry with I'm Going Home. It was announced yesterday that the singer and actor has died. He was 80 years old. Well, 7:24 right now, and still to come here on Information Radio, we're going to be talking about a sticky situation for the retailers who sold maple syrup from a Quebec company that's now being called, quote, fake, and now face a potential class action lawsuit. So we're going to hear from a Manitoba producer with a maple stand of Manitoba maples up in McCreary about the impact that might have here. So stay tuned for that. Right now in Winnipeg, we are sitting at about 15 degrees at the Forks, warming up to a sunny 23 today. Well, let's check in now with Scott Reguer, who's in with a look at your morning sports. Hello there.
Hey, Corey.
So for the Blue Jays, there was strength in numbers last night.
Yeah, with 7 pitchers, Corey, combining on a shutout of Kansas City. Shane Bieber was supposed to start last night, but his shoulder injury meant the bullpen had to shoulder the responsibility instead. And they did, allowing a meager 6 Royals hits. The Jays, meantime, got their biggest hit from Nathan Lucas, a 3-run homer that accounted for all of their runs. It was especially welcome given Lucas's gaffe in the previous game against the Royals. He got tagged for the final out, trying to stretch a single into a double. Here's Lucas.
Felt good. Felt good. There were a few guys that came up to me and said that I was going to come up big tonight just to make up for what happened. But I guess you can't screw up base running if you just hit the ball over the fence. So it's great.
Yeah, wise words there from Nathan Lucas. The Jays still 3 games back in the American League wildcard race. Lots going on right now. It's that time of the year, including the Chicago White Sox leading their division, the AL Central, largely because of the white-hot streak by Winkler, Manitoba's Tristan Peters. He hit another homer last night in what ended a loss to the Mets. So that's 5 straight games he's hit a long ball. And I love baseball, Corey, because it is a sport among all sports that relies on statistics. So how's this for Tristan Peters and his past 5 games? He has 5 home runs, 10-plus hits. He has multiple doubles and walks and a steal. There is only one other player in Major League history that has had such a 5-game stretch, none other than Babe Ruth. So that would give you a bit of an example of just how hot Tristan Peters has been of late.
Wow.
Looking at, isn't that something?
That is some Manitoba boy making it big. That's awesome.
Yeah, and he was in the All-Star game this year. He's flown under the radar a little bit, but man, he's had a good season. Just one other baseball note. At the Little League World Series, Vancouver's Little Mountain team lost to Japan yesterday 7-3, so their Cinderella run comes to an end just shy of the quarterfinals.
That makes me so sad because you've been bringing such lovely interviews with those kids.
Yeah, I know. I'll miss their quotes, that's for sure.
So let's go to tennis now, where the main draw at the U.S. Open is just about set.
Yeah, one more day of qualifying, Corey. 2 Canadian women are hoping to punch their tickets into the main draw, including Carson Branstein. Now, she was born in California, although Branstein's mom is from Ontario, and so she's opted to represent Canada because she says she shares more of an affinity with the Great White North. This is exactly the same thing baseballer Freddie Freeman did. And wouldn't you know, he and Branstein, they're cousins. She plays her final qualifier this morning. A little later on, it's Bianca Andreescu playing hers. Of course, Andreescu won the U.S. Open back in 2019. It felt like the whole country was watching that final match against Serena Williams. Lots has changed since then, Corey, with Andreescu putting together a comeback of sorts after taking a long while away from the sport. She says all of the life experience she gained is something she values.
My coach likes to say I'm an apprentice of life, which I'm flattered. But I like that in a way where it's like I'm curious about so many other things outside of my sport. I definitely gotten into more of like the spiritual, like esoteric side of life. I've gone to many retreats, but I'm just super happy with having that experience because it made me appreciate being on the court a little bit more.
Apprentice of life, Bianca Andreescu there, who besides doing things like 5-day silent retreats, is also something of a music producer these days. So she'll play her final qualifying match today. The main draw in New York starts on Sunday.
Hoping you would say that she would also play a gig as well. That would be pretty exciting.
That would be cool, yeah.
And finally, some history was made in volleyball last night.
That's the call, Corey, from Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic, where Canada's women's volleyball team won gold at the Norseca Continental Championship last night. It was a tense 5-set win over the U.S. That feels especially good right now. It is Canada's 5th win over the Americans this summer, not that we're counting, and the first time ever the Canadians have won gold at this meet.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Scott.
You betcha.
That is Scott Reguer with your morning sports. Well, commute right now looking pretty good. We haven't heard of many major issues yet out there, but if you're walking, you're biking, you're driving, you can always give us a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093. And still ahead here on Information Radio, a local business that makes steel wire products for indoor ice rinks says counter tariffs are just bad for Canadians. So we're going to talk to the president of that company coming up after your CBC News from Manitoba.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it is 15 degrees in downtown Winnipeg. It's going to be a gorgeous day. Sunshine 23, which is seasonal for this end of August day. Advocates for children are skeptical a major court settlement will improve safety for children and youth online. Meta has agreed to pay up to $18 billion to settle a lawsuit launched by dozens of American states. They allege the owner of Facebook and Instagram has deliberately designed its platforms to be addictive to children and teens. Meta has agreed to strengthen child safety measures and give parents more user-friendly controls. Jacques Marcoux at the Canadian Centre for Child Protection in Winnipeg says it's not clear if these measures will be applied in Canada or whether they'll be effective.
Companies like this have made a lot of promises and commitments in the past to online safety, and yet the ultimate measure of whether or not it's working is whether or not kids are doing better, or whether or not online luring is on the decline, or whether or not child exploitation online is on the decline, and it's not.
Marcoux says what's really needed are laws and regulations designed to protect young people in digital spaces. A candle company in Winnipeg hopes to get through these latest round of American tariffs largely unscathed. That's because it diversified its client base and supply chain the first time President Donald Trump threatened tariffs. CBC's Rosanna Hempel reports.
We basically went cold turkey.
Farmer Sun stopped selling to the United States entirely, the first time American tariffs were applied to Canadian exports last year. The business stopped sourcing materials from there too. Here's co-owner Dan Mitchell.
We just said, you know what, it's not worth it. If it means finding new partners, finding ways to just protect our business, that's the smartest move for us.
He says it wasn't easy, but the hard work has mostly paid off. Candles are among the Canadian goods facing a 50% tariff. It meant changing their whole business model. They expanded their retail store and now source materials and new products from Canada, Asia, and Europe.
We have eliminated a lot of the risk of having so many eggs in one basket.
The Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce says other industries are trying to do more business within Canada, too. They say not all can stop trading so easily with the U.S., Manitoba's #1 customer. Rosanna Hempel, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The owners of a Brandon bakery are frustrated and out $150 after learning they had fallen for an online scam. Wheat City Wheatless Goods were excited to get an email inviting them to register for the Assiniboia Downs Manitoba Night Market in Winnipeg. Owner Lane Quigley says he sent an e-transfer to the emailer, but on the day of the event, Quigley called Assiniboia Downs and got some unfortunate news.
He said, I don't see Wheat City Wheatless Goods on my list. And he asked me about the email address we got it from, and he said any official correspondence would have come from their email, and he gave it to me, and it wasn't the one that we had been talking to. So somebody sends you an email about an opportunity too good to be true, it might be too good to be true.
Scammers have been using other Manitoba pop-up markets in their attempts to get money from vendors, including Third and Bird and the Holiday Alley Winter Festival in Selkirk. The death toll in Nepal continues to rise. Nepali police say at least 353 people are dead after torrential flooding along the country's border with Tibet. Rescue workers are desperately racing to find survivors. Entire villages have been wiped away, and rescue efforts in the Himalayan region are being made all that more difficult because of the terrain. Among the hundreds of people missing, 25 Canadians. You can hear the latest on this story, as well as other national and international news, coming up on World Report at 8. Well, if you live near the North End sewage treatment plant, you may notice a smell in the air over the next few weeks. The city of Winnipeg started operating the newly upgraded Headworks facility. It uses a biological process to break down odors, but it takes time for the bacteria that carries out the process to grow inside the plant. Cynthia Weeb, the city's manager of engineering for water and waste, says that process should be finished by the end of September.
During this time, there is a potential that you do smell some intermittent odors. And we just wanted people to be aware of that it's not something that's going wrong with the sewage treatment process. It's part of the process and should only last for a few weeks.
The Headworks facility is the first of 3 phases of upgrades meant to increase capacity at the plant and meet environmental requirements. Well, a baby red panda is getting people's attention at Assiniboine Park Zoo. The 10-week-old male finally emerged from its nest this week, its next box. The zoo animal health director, Charlene Berkvens, says the cub is now starting to venture out a little.
Sounded like Mom was encouraging / bringing him, forcing the adventure. But yeah, he's out. He's fluffy. He's adorable. We did his vaccines last week, and he's over 1 kilogram already.
He's a shy guy, and he doesn't have a name yet. The zoo plans to hold a naming contest in the fall. You can find photos of this really adorable cub. All you have to do is head to our website, where you'll also find other Manitoba news. CBC Manitoba, CBC News Manitoba. What is our website?
CBC.ca/Manitoba. I got you.
Wow.
No, I have to say it all the time, so all good.
I say it all the time too. What happened there?
Who knows?
I'm glitching.
It's the cuteness. It just cuteness overload, I think.
Okay, I'll take that.
We'll say. Thank you very much, Heather.
Thanks.
That's Heather Wells at your CBC News desk. I'm Corey Funkin from RC Marcusa. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio One with all the most up-to-date information on baby pandas. Also, with the most up-to-date information on your weather with Abby Adiemi. Hi there.
Hi, Corey. We're still looking at that sunny condition coming our way across the regions from the south all the way up north. You will see comfortable, warm stretch. For Winnipeg right now, we're still hovering around 15 at the Forks and 8 at the airport. It's clear, it's sunny. We will aim for a high of 23 today. And in the southern regions, the Pembina Valley region, the Parkland region, the Interlake region, we're looking at temperatures around 11 degrees at this time. Brandon cooling off around 8. All the regions warming up close to 26 degrees under these sunny conditions, while up north we're also seeing 7s and 11s across board with highs in the range of 21s and 22. We're seeing 7 degrees around the Tudula Lake area this time, and of course the Churchill region is around 11 degrees. All the areas seeing sunny conditions, though we're spotting some foggy conditions in some areas. That should clear later. Winnipeg right now, we're looking at 15 at the Fox. We get to 23 later.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
Sierra, what's going on with the commute?
Not too much, Corey. It's been pretty quiet out there on the commuter line. The CBC commuter line itself has been pretty quiet. I haven't received any calls this morning, so to me it sounds like your drive or your commute out there is going along pretty smoothly. But if that does change, I would still love to hear from you, no matter where you are here in the province, and no matter however you are getting around. I'd love to hear from you. So give me a call on that CBC commuter line. The number is 204-788-3093.
Thank you very much, Sierra. Well, up next here on CBC, maple syrup is the fabric of some of our Manitoba communities, like the town of St. Pierre-Joly, for example. But some of that industry are watching a case out of Quebec quite closely. Retailers who sold a Quebec brand of maple syrup are now facing a potential class action lawsuit. A Radio Canada investigation found that the syrup made by Quebec producer Steve Bordeaux, which claimed to be 100% pure maple syrup, was cut with 50% cane sugar. In April, Bordeaux told CBC that the syrup they tested must have been a bad batch and blamed his suppliers. But a group of consumers hope to take Bordeaux to court, along with several retailers who sold the product, including Loblaw and Sobeys. The lawsuit says the grocery store should have known the syrup was fake, quote, given the difference in value with other products, unquote. Bob Gass is a Manitoba maple syrup producer from McCreary. Good morning.
Good morning.
So what did you think when you heard that a producer in Quebec is allegedly cutting maple syrup with another product?
I heard about it on the news, much like so many of us, so that's about all I know about it. But yes, I'm not surprised that someone would blend maple syrup with some other sugar product. Could be cane sugar or corn syrup or something like that.
And how common is it within the maple syrup industry to see versions that aren't 100% pure?
I couldn't honestly tell you. I understand, I hear about it occasionally, but I wouldn't be able to put a percentage on it or anything like that. But maple syrup, it's a labor-intensive industry. We're managing a forest, basically, and if you wanted to plant a tree to make maple syrup, it would take 40 years before it was big enough to produce. So there's a lot of work in it, and it is expensive because of the cost of the labor and the work that goes in. So if you took a product like maple syrup and cut it down with something that was made in greater quantities, that was much cheaper, I'm not surprised.
So in this case, people were out there, they were buying a can that said maple syrup on it. So what do people need to understand if they actually want to buy 100% pure maple syrup? How do they know that it actually is, in fact, 100%
well,
pure?
I'm from McCreary, and our label is Manitoba maple syrup. And on that label, I put 100% pure. So that's what people should expect. But, you know what I mean? There's a lot of maple-flavored products on the market shelf that in the stores that aren't maple syrup, and they're not saying they're maple syrup, but they can be maple flavored without any maple syrup in them. But I guess it's probably the people who would be bottling the syrup that would have a chance to blend it. Once it's sealed in a container, it has to stay that way.
And what are the regulations around labeling maple syrup? So if someone calls it maple syrup, does it have to be 100%, or can people essentially call it whatever they want and put in it whatever they want?
To the best of my knowledge, I don't believe the name maple syrup is a protected word, okay? But if you say that something is 100% pure, the reason you're doing that is you're saying it's 100% pure maple syrup, and that's what you should expect to get. But there's federal regulations about the finer points on how to market it and how to label it and package it. But from our perspective in McCurry here in Manitoba, we make maple syrup on our own trees, and there's many others doing it in the area. And we call it, or I call mine, 100% pure, and that's what people have to expect.
Do you think it should be a protected label, like say champagne, for example, where you can only call it that if it in fact is?
Yeah, those are. I'm not an expert in this field, but let's say Scotch whiskey, I understand, has to be made in Scotland. There's lots of other whiskeys out there that might have the same or similar flavor profile. And that would be the same thing with maple syrup. So you can put something in a container and make it maple flavored and call it a pancake syrup or maple flavored legally. But if you say something is 100% pure, then really I would expect that we would all expect it to be 100% pure.
And part of the lawsuit actually says grocery stores should have known the maple syrup was fake because of the low price. Now, some jars are being sold for as low as $4.99. So how does that price sit with you?
Well, here's the thing. One phone call to a distributor in Ontario or Quebec, and they would give you the price per pound on what maple syrup is selling for, what they would sell it for in a 45-gallon drum, for instance. So any buyer from any given grocery store would be able to make that phone call, and if he was buying something that was selling for $4.95 for, let's say, a half liter or something like that, I don't know how big the container was, they would have to know immediately that it's not maple syrup. At $4.95, you don't get anything in maple syrup, very, very little. At $4.95, that doesn't cover the labor and packaging.
Can you taste the difference between pure maple syrup and the stuff that's been
People
altered?
that know maple syrup would know the difference. So people that consume maple syrup regularly, or especially those from the maple syrup regions, people like myself who make maple syrup, yes, we would know the difference. Okay? And sometimes the blend could be a little bit or a lot, by percentage in the volume. But so obviously the more, let's say, corn syrup you would put into some maple syrup and package it, then the more obvious it would be.
And finally here, before I let you go, is there any concern that, a case like this will reflect poorly or lead to mistrust in the syrup in syrup industry and on producers like yourself in general?
Well, I don't see a problem for myself. Okay, we make Manitoba maple syrup, and it's on the label, and we're unique in the industry in that we tap Manitoba maples, and we tell you right up front it's Manitoba maples. But you know what I mean? Having somebody looking over your shoulder to make sure you're actually selling what you say you're selling, I think that's a good thing. Because there's a lot of people, it's farming, right? And it's forest. And you just can't control everything in that forest every year. There's a lot of maintenance. There's a lot of work, a lot of expense. And it's got to be, disappointing if you see your neighbor, for instance, selling his syrup for half of what you're selling it for, and you know what your costs are, and you think, well, how can that be? So I would say I'm sure most of the people are very honest in how they handle their maple syrup. And it's probably not the producers blending it. The blending would probably have to be taken probably at the packaging level. I think people will get over it, but they might pick up a jug and look at it and say, I wonder if this is the real thing, if it's on, ridiculously cheap.
Well, Bob, thank you for your time this morning. Really appreciate it.
All right, thanks.
That's Bob Gass. He is a Manitoba maple syrup producer from McCreary. Quebec's agriculture ministry is investigating the company at the heart of this story.
Manitoba may have a reputation for being cold and flat, but our podcast isn't. I'm Marcy Marcusa, the warmest host on the prairies. Even when my podcast, This is Manitoba, is exploring some challenging issues. I'm never flat when it comes to holding our leaders to account. Some of those interviews have been called spicy. If you care about this province, check out This is Manitoba, with new episodes dropping every Wednesday.
A bit of a traffic update for you here. Femi called the commuter line and said westbound Abinogi-Mikuna, just after Shore Hill Drive, there's a multi-vehicle collision in the median lane. Emergency crews are on scene. And Femi said it's causing some backups heading westbound on Abinogi-Mikuna, so keep right to get around that. 7:47 right now here on Information Radio. I'm Corey Funk in for Marcy Marcusa. Well, next up here on the show, the U.S.-Canada trade war is not letting up, and steel, one of Manitoba's one industry here in Manitoba, has already been hit hard by Trump's tariffs, and some worry that Canada's proposed dollar-for-dollar counter tariffs could make things even worse. David Koss is the president of Winnipeg's Hunter Wire, a company that makes steel wire products for indoor hockey rinks, and he joins us now. Hi there, David.
Hello.
So Canada's dollar-for-dollar counter tariffs are set to go into effect next month. You've said you have concerns about that, so tell us why.
Well, the reciprocal tariffs certainly have an impact on our supply chain since it was a year and a half ago when this trade war effectively started. We've had to kind of realign some of our value streams and input costs and where we're sourcing materials from. And the reciprocal tariffs have put certainly some pressure on that. We're required in some instances to purchase U.S. steel for U.S. projects, and having to pay an increased tariff on that is making our costs considerably higher.
Can you just kind of break down how much of it like, obviously we're not going to ask you all the numbers, but just how much of it's kind of affected your bottom line?
Well, about 40% of our products go to the U.S. So, every single component that the manufacturer that goes to the U.S. is impacted by this, by these reciprocal tariffs specifically. And as far as dollars, I'm not necessarily going to share that, but the majority of that burden is being carried by our customers, which is certainly concerning because it has the downstream impact of some of our customers maybe trying to look for other sources. So we haven't seen that yet, but it's certainly a concern.
And so if these reciprocal tariffs come into effect, what will that mean for you come September?
Well, it will mean that our costs are going up. We're trying to mitigate that using some of the drawback programs through the CBSA and different programs like that. Our running joke in the office here is that we started with plan A, B, and C, and we're all the way down to Q, R, S, and T at this point. It just keeps changing. So. There are plans in place, but who knows what's going to happen, when those reciprocal tariffs come into place. How is the U.S. going to react? How is, what's the next step? We're kind of constantly chasing our tails here, and we don't know what the impact is going to be because it changes so quickly.
So Premier Wab Kinew is promising support to businesses in light of this trade war. What kind of provincial supports, are you hoping for that could help your business?
Well, I've looked through kind of some of the proposed and existing programs that the province is offering, and for the most part, it doesn't really help my industry at all. It's worker support programs, which is valuable, but it revolves more around training than actual removal of trade barriers or assistance, reaching other markets or reducing costs, that type of thing. So, what I would like to see from the provincial government is to become a little bit more relevant on the global scale. CBC News, I watch them every single morning when I'm having a coffee in the morning, and the national news doesn't even talk about Manitoba at all. And it would certainly be nice to become a little bit more relevant on the national scale and the North American scale as well, to help break down some of those barriers. Interprovincial trade is always one of those sticking points that we keep talking about, but don't see a lot of solutions for. But even further from that, calm down the rhetoric, maintain those relationships across the border because they are very, very important and they are very valuable.
And federally, the government's promised $1.5 billion in loans and grants to help affected businesses stay afloat. Have you accessed any of those funds at all?
I've been looking at, there is a program through Prairies Canada or Prairies Can that does support value streams and technology investment, which I think is valuable. The rest of those programs don't really apply to what we're trying to accomplish, and some of them are a little bit concerning as well. So.
And I'm just curious. So you say about 40% of your business goes down to the U.S. Your company actually has been pretty lucky that you haven't lost clients so far. But what are you hearing from those clients? Like you said, they're actually bearing the brunt of these increased costs from tariffs. What do you hear from them?
Just a lot of frustration. We don't get into politics intentionally, obviously. Many of my customers are or have been, avid Trump supporters, and we don't discuss that at all. It's more of an frustration and eye roll, and here we go again. What's this going to cost me? Early on, one of our customers had indicated that if these tariffs went through. The cost of a normal ice rink or a standard ice rink would increase by about $200,000 on just the refrigeration side, and that's continually getting pushed downstream to the end consumer at that point. So.
And if this trade war continues long term or escalates, is there any existential concerns you have for your company, or do you think this is something you can weather long term?
We've been extremely proactive with coming up with plans and what if scenarios, long before some of this stuff has hit. My biggest concern is we're going to run out of ideas. Certainly the Buy Canadian sentiment that we're seeing nationally is helping with potential growth markets for us. We're growing more within the Canadian market than we have historically done. That's certainly positive and something that we can be proud of as a nation in general. And something that's been missing in the last, a couple of decades. But certainly for companies that are considerably larger than we are, there's a lot of, I would say there's a lot of concern with, a lack of access to new markets or some of those markets disappearing because of this trade war.
And finally here, you mentioned lifting provincial trade barriers, something you'd like to see more. How hard is it to do business other places in Canada?
For us, generally not. Some of the taxation, it is just difficult and frustrating, when every single province has, different GSTs, HSTs, RST requirements, and that's more of a pain point just from paperwork side. But access to materials and shipping. And that type of thing is kind of where, for our industry anyways, where the interprovincial trade barriers are becoming a problem.
Well, David, thanks so much for your time this morning. Really appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
David Koss is the president of Hunter Wire here in Winnipeg. The company makes steel wire products for indoor hockey rinks, or ice rinks in general. The province says it will release details of its plans to support tariff-affected companies in the coming days.
You know the voices that tell the story of our province. Now you can take them anywhere. From the essential start to your day on information radio to the conversations that define our lunch hour on Radio Noon and the pulse of the city on Up to Speed, your local connection is always within reach. Just open the CBC News app, tap the local drop-down, and hit play. Your favorite voices, your province, right in your pocket. Download the CBC News app today, your daily rhythm, live and local.
Well, still to come here on Information Radio, there's been a big push for Canadians to support local in light of the trade war with the U.S. And now a Winnipeg City Councillor is calling on downtown businesses to proudly display the maple leaf in front of their stores. We're going to speak with him about this initiative and why he wants our city to set an example for the rest of the country. Also coming up, Meta has agreed to pay billions of dollars to several U.S. states and make changes to their apps as part of a settlement to claim their platforms are addicting for children. We're going to hear from a Manitoba child safety advocate with her thoughts coming up after 8 o'clock. Let's also take a quick look at your traffic here. The one call we got recently from Femi on the commuter line says westbound Abinogi-Mikina just before Shore Hill Drive, that's just after the tracks. There's a multi-vehicle collision in the median lane. Emergency crews are on scene, and Femi said it's causing some backups heading westbound on Abinogi-Mikina, so keep right to get around that. Well, 7:57 right now. Let's check in with Heather Wells with a look at news headlines. Hi.
Hi there. Well, a Winnipeg candle company hopes to escape most of the financial fallout from the latest round of American tariffs. That's because Farmer's Son chose to find new clients and partners outside the United States when the first round of tariffs came into play. We're going to hear more about that. As well, a baby red panda is getting people's attention at Assiniboine Park Zoo. 10-week-old male finally emerged from his nest box this week, and Zoo Animal Health Director Charlene Berkman says he is now starting just a little bit by little bit to venture out. We've got photos at cbc.ca/Manitoba. Our next news coming up at 8:30.
You can do it, little buddy. Come on out.
Aw, and he's so cute. He's fluffy and red. Cute.
Yeah, and if you want to see pictures, you definitely got to go to the website. You can also check out our YouTube page. We were playing them earlier today as well, our CBC Manitoba YouTube page. Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, you're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio One. I don't think I gave the traffic number. If you do want to call us, see something, 204-788-3093. We're in for a very lovely day here in Winnipeg and actually right across Manitoba. It is just about, it's only 15 right now at the Forks. We are warming up to 23. You can expect it to be sunny all day. But it is dipping down to 8 overnight, so it's going to be pretty chilly out there, and with some rain in the forecast tomorrow. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa, and you're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio One. We'll be back after World Report. Stay tuned.
I'm Talia Schlanger, sitting in for Tom Power. After 7 years, musician Sarah Bareilles is back with a brand new album called Good Grief. It was born out of some of the most difficult times in her life, including losing friends and an unsuccessful journey with IVF. She'll tell you what she's learned about hope after loss.
Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current.
I'm Susan Ormiston. A lot of Canadians are worried about the trade dispute with the United States. But what are Americans thinking? The splits in the U.S. between support for Donald Trump's policies and fear over their effects. Coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. In northern Nepal, people stand near a flooded road after most of their village was destroyed. Their homes and vehicles are now buried in mud after a massive glacier collapse and landslide. At least 353 people are now dead. Hundreds more, including 25 Canadians, are missing along the Nepal-Tibet border. This man is the deputy director of a local teaching hospital in Nepal.
It's really overwhelming, as most of you might be knowing. Almost 4 districts, they have been cut off from the mainland. All the bridges have been washed away, and because of the high velocity of flooding, it's like a flash flood, so people could not protect themselves, and there are lots of casualties. The exact situation is yet to be known.
Rescue efforts in the Himalayan region have been hampered due to the severe flooding and difficult terrain. Convicted war criminal Ratko Mladic has died in custody at The Hague. Former Bosnian Serb military commander was serving a life sentence for genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. Mladic led forces during the bloody 1990s Bosnian War and was held responsible for the 1995 Srebrenica massacre. He was 84 years old. Closing arguments begin today in the trial of Lindsay Clancy. The Massachusetts mother is accused of killing her 3 children in 2023. She's pleaded not guilty due to a lack of criminal responsibility. Her lawyers argue that she was experiencing postpartum psychosis. The CBC's Chris Reyes joins us now from New York. Chris, what can we expect today?
Hi, John. So lawyers will make their final case to the jury. The defense has portrayed Clancy as a competent nurse who was present for her 3 children until her mental health began spiraling after the birth of her 3rd child. According to her lawyers, Clancy was overprescribed drugs and given inconsistent treatment. Clancy also claimed she heard a voice telling her to murder her children. They were strangled in her basement in 2023 while her husband was out of the house. Clancy then jumped from a 2nd-floor balcony, which left her paralyzed. The final witness of the case, John, a psychiatrist, told the jury he didn't believe Clancy heard voices. Prosecutors argue that Clancy knew what she was doing at the time of the murders. If found guilty, she could face life in prison. If not guilty on the basis of insanity, she would be committed to a psychiatric facility.
Chris, this case has received a lot of attention in the U.S.
That's right. This has sparked a lot of conversation around postpartum care, given that throughout the case, the defense portrayed Clancy as someone who tried to get help for months for her insomnia, anxiety, depression. She even checked herself into a psychiatric ward. Hundreds of women wearing pink have shown up at the trial in support of Clancy, with many saying her story resonated with them. The defense doesn't dispute that Clancy killed her children, only that she should not be held criminally responsible because of mental illness.
The CBC's Chris Reyes in New York. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
The United States Trade Representative says it's not clear when negotiations with Canada will resume after collapsing last weekend. In a Canadian exclusive, Jameson Greer also denied that his team added last-minute conditions to the deal, pushing back against Prime Minister Mark Carney's account of why talks fell apart. Catherine Tunney reports.
I would say we don't have open channels right now.
Hope for a quick resolution dashed. The U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer says it's unclear when his country and Canada will return to the negotiating table. A concern as the 2 countries barrel deeper into a trade war.
If there's further retaliation from the Canadian side, we of course we're not going to just sit down and take that. Our view is don't retaliate. But I know that I know how people are feeling in Canada.
Prime Minister Mark Carney has said last-minute changes from the U.S. scuttled the deal, calling the proposals unfair. In an exclusive interview with CBC's Rosemary Barton, Greer pushed back.
When they came back, they had some additional views, they had some additional requests, they had some additional things that were too much for the United States.
Trump's trade official told CBC Canadian negotiators had concerns about the deal's implementation. He also disputed Carney's account that the terms would have encroached on Canada's ability to pursue trade agreements with other countries, or would have undermined French language protections. Neither government has released the text of the draft agreement. Catherine Tunney, CBC News, Washington.
And we are hearing from the minister responsible for Canada-U.S. trade this morning, Dominic LeBlanc. He is posting on X on the heels of that interview with Jameson Greer. LeBlanc says Canada welcomes that the U.S. is withdrawing its previous positions on product labeling, French language, and Canadian culture, and that Ottawa looks forward to future clarifications, in quotations, on other sticking points expressed by U.S. negotiators. The clarifications, LeBlanc wrote, would create the possibility of a mutually beneficial deal while respecting Canadian sovereignty. The new leader of the BC Conservatives has been in the job for just 3 months, and already 5 MLAs have left the party in protest. As Katie DeRosa reports, the latest members to quit say they are deeply concerned about the direction the party is taking under Carrie Lynn Finlay.
What she's done to the Conservative Party, short time, is reckless.
Brennan Day says BC Conservative leader Carrie Lynn Finlay is taking the party in a direction he can't ethically stand by. Day and Teresa Watt announced they're leaving the BC Conservative caucus. 5 MLAs have left since Finlay was elected leader in May. Day says he's lost confidence in Finlay's judgment and the people hired for key leadership roles.
Who Carrie Lynn Finlay has decided to surround herself with are absolutely an affront to my moral center.
Day says that includes Apollo Chung, the caucus's operations manager. Chung is the former executive director of the Alberta Republican Party, which supports independence for that province. Finley announced Wednesday that Chung has been terminated. She did not give a reason. As for Watt, she says she's leaving after serious and unfounded accusations Finley made about her.
To see that record reduced to the label CCP is extremely difficult for me to.
Watt was referring to a leaked group chat in which she says Finley claimed Watt had associations with the Chinese Communist Party. The comments were made during the leadership campaign. Finley said in a statement she apologized to Watt directly in July, and the two discussed moving forward. Speaking to reporters on Tuesday, Finley insisted her caucus was united, while at the same time acknowledging that more MLAs could leave. Katie DeRosa, CBC News, Victoria.
They're the unassuming sensory toys taking the world by storm, but so-called squishies or squishy dumplings, popular with children and young adults, have health and safety authorities on the alert. Chemical and burn risks now seeing some countries take action, though, as Talia Sarv explains, Canada is yet to follow.
3, 2, 1.
Squeals of surprise as soft, palm-sized toys are being filmed unboxed, squeezed, then shared online. This is Squishy Mania. But high demand for the brand name products has prompted an influx of cheaper and potentially hazardous fakes to hit the market.
It's cheap for a reason.
University of Toronto professor and chemist Miriam Diamond says it has amplified the risk of the unknown, with toy manufacturers not obligated to disclose ingredients.
There could be chemicals there that are fairly benign, but there could also be chemicals that are of concern.
Australia and the US are cracking down at their borders to seize counterfeit toys amid growing safety concerns. Among them, cases of skin burns when the toy overheats and explodes. A UK study also found unsafe levels of toxic carcinogen benzene in some. But product safety group Consumer Reports says it's not just about counterfeits.
We're actually seeing incidents of products that are happening that are purchased directly from retail.
Health Canada is reviewing more than 30 reports from the last 4 months. Amazon Canada has removed some off-brand dumpling-shaped versions. For now, experts advise to keep the toys away from hot areas and surfaces and inspect them regularly, monitoring for leaks. Talia Sav, CBC News, Toronto.
And finally, pioneering polka dot-loving Japanese artist Yayoi Kusama has died. Her paintings, installations, and sculptures have been drawing crowds around the world for decades, including in 2023 when Kusama launched a collection with luxury brand Louis Vuitton. Kusama was known for her bold, colorful work, which often featured polka dots. Her studio says she died on August 14th at a hospital in Tokyo. Yayoi Kusama was 97 years old. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. Did you know that World Report is among the most popular podcasts in Canada? Don't miss out. Follow us wherever you listen. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Well, good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio One, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. 16 right now in Winnipeg. We're heading for a sunny high of 23. The overnight, though, could it be dropping down to just 8 degrees. We'll get the details on your forecast just ahead. Coming up this half hour on the show, Meta has agreed to pay billions of dollars to several U.S. states and make changes to their apps as part of a settlement to claims their platforms are addicting for children. And despite that settlement, it still claims, it still denies any wrongdoing. So we're going to hear from an advocate here in Manitoba about why she's frustrated with the company. So stay tuned for that. Also, Winnipeg City Council is calling on businesses to adorn their storefronts with Canadian flags following ongoing threats against Canada by U.S. President Donald Trump. We're going to hear all about what he calls Operation Naked Flagpole. Well, 8:11 right now. Let's check in with Heather Wells with a look at news headlines.
Good morning. Well, the owners of a Brandon bakery are frustrated and they're out $150 after learning they'd fallen for an online scam. Wheat City Wheatless Goods were excited when they received an email inviting them to register for the Assiniboia Downs Manitoba Night Market. The owner says he sent an e-transfer to the emailer, then found out that wasn't the email for the actual market. Scammers have also been using other Manitoba pop-up markets in their attempts to get money from vendors. We're going to hear from another market coming up in our next local news at 8:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thanks.
That's Heather Wells at your CBC News Desk. Abby Adiemi is in now with a look at your weather. Hello.
Yes, sunshades. Definitely you would need sunshades today. Lots of sunshine outside. It's going to be comfortable across board from the south all the way stretching up north. We're seeing temperatures around 15 degrees at the Forks at this time. And the airport is still tracking 8 degrees, similar to what we're seeing in Brandon this morning. Heading, most of the regions in the south will head to a comfortable high near 25 degrees. The city, we get to 23. While up north, we're still seeing morning fog around the Thompson, Lake Gillam, and Tudela Lake region, even all the way into Churchill. But that should give way to lots of sunshine soon. And we'll see highs reaching 24, 25s up there. But for Winnipeg right now, 15 at the Forks, warming to 23 with lots of sunshine.
Took the kids to the splash pad yesterday.
Ooh.
And it's that time of year, though, where when it's sunny out, they're playing in the splash pad. But as soon as the cloud goes over the sun, instantly they're both like, I'm cold. And they run over for a towel and a snack. Yeah.
Yeah, this is that hot and cold period.
Yeah, it's that time of year where you're like not totally sure how to dress. But luckily sunny most of the day today. Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
Sierra Sanders in now with a look at your commute. Hello.
Hey, Corey. Yeah, still keeping an eye on that collision we were talking about there. Got a call from Femi in the last half hour. So westbound Abinogi-Meekinaw, just before Shore Hill Drive, kind of right after the tracks there on westbound Abinogi. There's a multi-vehicle collision in the median lane. Emergency crews are on scene there attending to the situation, but Femi said it's causing some backups heading westbound there on Abinogi. So you want to make sure to keep right to pass and proceed with caution. So far, that's really the only situation that I am keeping an eye out for. But if that changes here, we still have some time left in the show. I'd love to hear from you. So give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number's 204-788-3093.
Well, as mentioned, Meta is settling with 29 U.S. states over allegations their apps were designed to get children addicted to them. As part of a settlement, the social media giant has agreed to pay up to $18 billion U.S. dollars and make changes to Instagram and Facebook for teens. So that includes limiting screen time to 2 hours a day and blocking all usage from midnight to 6 a.m. Now, the company says it will also enhance measures to prevent children from accessing age-restricted content. CBC's Faith Fundal spoke with Jacques Marcoux, the Director of Research for the Canadian Centre for Child Protection.
Will this specific settlement have a long-term impact? I don't think so. I think that this is just one of many fights that has to happen, but it's certainly a start in the right direction.
The money, $17 billion, seems like a big number. In context, is it actually that big?
However, that's paid out over 10 years. So we're talking less than $2 billion per year. But here's the thing. Last year, Meta made $200 billion in revenue. They made $60 billion in profits. So when we look at that fine, $2 billion per year, it's really not that significant. We're talking 2-3% of their net income. So is that amount sufficient to make the company perhaps change their behavior? I don't think so. So I don't put a lot of stock in the actual fine amount. I'm more interested in the requirements that they fundamentally make changes to some of the designs on their platform.
That's Jacques Marcoux. He's the Director of Research for the Canadian Centre for Child Protection. He was speaking with CBC's Faith Fundal and Up to Speed yesterday. Now, someone else who's concerned about the results of this settlement is Val Caldwell. She's a child safety advocate in Winnipeg who has spent many years educating kids and parents across Canada about online safety. And she joins us now. Hi there, Val.
Hi, good morning.
So what do you make of the settlement reached with Meta?
Well, I think I would echo the comments that were just made. It's in terms of the fine itself, it's really nothing for a company that big, but I'm curious to see how they're actually going to implement some of the changes they're saying.
And in agreeing to settle, Meta denied any wrongdoing. So how did you feel when you heard that, despite the settlement?
Yeah, that didn't surprise me at all. And I think that's part of the issue. I think until these companies come forward and admit that what they have created is causing damage to not just children, the addiction piece of it when we talk about kids, is there's a lot of adults who are struggling with screen time and a healthy relationship with technology. So I think when a company designs technology based on the same design as gambling machines, it's difficult for me to understand how they can then say there was no intent to ensure that people become reliant on their product.
Hmm. So let's talk about these new enhanced measures Meta's taking. So what do you think about the 2-hour limit on social media?
Um, I guess I struggle. I mean, my advice would be probably 2 hours is enough time, full stop, for anybody to be spending on a screen during the day. So if that means they're limited to 2 hours on Meta products on Facebook or Instagram, then does that mean that they still have free reign on TikTok and Snapchat and all the AI apps? And so the 2 hours on Meta, it maybe might reduce their screen time on Meta, but does it reduce overall screen time?
And the other change coming is social media blockage from midnight to 6 a.m. What about that? Do you think that'll make much of a difference for kids? Because we've done a bunch of stories and we've heard from kids who say, yeah, I'm up like really late because of social media.
Yeah, and again, I mean, maybe for Meta products, if they can't get on them from midnight till 6 a.m., but then that still leaves open all the other world of technology that's out there that aren't governed by Meta. It's a start, I guess.
And what type of content online are you most concerned about?
Well, I think there's a lot of levels to that. I think there's a lot of content specifically on apps like Instagram and TikTok that are self harm content. There's a lot of suicidal ideation. Those obviously types of content are very concerning, violence, hypersexual content. There's also the predatory side of it, the ability for adults to be connecting with kids on apps. So it's a multi level issue, I think.
Hmm. And how are teens actually accessing that content? Is it just the algorithms feeding it to them, or why are they seeing it in the first place?
Well, I think there's a lot to it. The algorithm definitely, because it's based on age, it seems to feed younger people more of that content. There's also a lot of sort of a subculture online. So if you were to put in the word suicide on a Meta product, for example, you'll get a screen that comes up and says, this content is, not available. Seek help. Here's some, places that you can go to seek help. But then if you put in certain emojis that they use to depict suicide, then all of that content is still available. So the content itself is not being removed. They're saying that they're moderating it, but the moderation is just looking for keywords, not specifically other ways that that content is still found.
Hmm. So you actually work with kids across Canada. What are they saying about what they're seeing online and how it's impacting them?
Yeah, so I speak to thousands of kids every year, and I don't think it matters what school I'm in. I hear the same stories from kids just about, their mental health being impacted, how they feel a strong pull to their devices. Kids also share with me the frustration they feel about the adults in their life who also have a strong pull to their technology, and how that sometimes seems to take precedence over things that they're doing. I also hear a lot about talking with strangers online, communicating with people they don't know, and those conversations start as young as grade 3.
And how can parents, what can parents do to keep their kids safe online, especially as we head back to school?
I think a lot of things, sometimes parents feel like they have to be technology experts. I think we need to remove that feeling. They don't have to understand every app and how it works. I think limits, of course, holding off as long as possible for kids. I know there's a lot of pressure out there. Kids play on a sports team, they have a group Snapchat. Kids feel like they're left out if they're not part of it. But if parents can hold off as long as possible, introducing them to those social media platforms, have limits, making sure that there's no phones in bedrooms at night, no phones at the table, having screen time limits, following those screen time limits as adults as well in the home. And having an open, honest dialogue with our kids always that, there are bad things out there. And regardless of what happens, that kids need to feel they can come to us and that we'll be there to help them through it.
And before I let you go here, how hopeful are you that things will get better? Because there are tangible changes coming, as like from this settlement, for example. There's social media bans being mulled here in Canada, in Manitoba in particular. In 10 years' time, do you see things getting better? Obviously, I'm not going to ask you to look into a crystal ball, but are things on the up and up? Would you say?
Yeah, For me, I would say my hope lies in the education of the kids themselves. I think limits, I think the last guest you had on about Australia said that I believe it was 70% of kids under 16 are still accessing social media. So I've always been about the preventative education. I think the more we talk with kids about the realities of the online world, the more we support them through it, I think the change will come with them. I do see it now in the kids that are in their early 20s are viewing social media and screen time very differently. And when I speak with high school kids, I always ask the high school kids if they were parents today, would they allow their kids to have a cell phone or have access to social media? And to a kid, everybody says no. So I think the change will come with the kids.
Yeah, do you kind of see that that we're having a bit of that social media is having its big tobacco moment? We kind of hear that maybe one day we might view social media like maybe many of us view cigarettes now.
Yeah, I think it'll take time for sure. And I think again, it's so new and it's coming so fast and there is a draw to it. And I think if we're being honest as adults, I mean, it is addictive. It's hard to walk away from it. It's, sitting and scrolling on TikTok for an hour seems like a better idea than putting your laundry away. So I think it's going to take some time, but I think the more information that comes out about how harmful it is, hopefully just like, when we look at situations with cigarette smoking, it takes time to change.
Well, Val, thank you for your time this morning. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate being here.
That's Val Caldwell. She is a child safety advocate. If you want to read more about this story, just visit cbc.ca.
I'm Chelsea Kemp, your local reporter for CBC Manitoba and Brandon. You're listening to CBC Radio One.
8:22 right now. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Corey Funk in for Marcy Marcusa. Right now in Winnipeg, we're sitting at about 16, heading for a high today of 23. And up next here on the show in Nepal, entire villages were wiped out in just moments when a landslide of ice and rock triggered massive flash floods. It happened near the border of Nepal and Tibet, and at least 270 people were killed and more than 1,300 are missing, including 25 Canadians. In a statement, Prime Minister Mark Carney called the floods devastating and said Canada stands ready to provide support as rescue efforts continue. Global Affairs Canada is in contact with organizations on the ground and says they are ready to contribute to any humanitarian efforts. They're urging Canadians seeking emergency consular advice to contact Global Affairs Canada, Emergency Watch, and Response Centre. Obil Adhikari works for a tour company that offers guided treks from Nepal to Quebec, and he spoke to CBC's Paul Hunter on As It Happens.
There are a lot of people going in for the pilgrimage right now. So this is a peak pilgrimage season for Mount Kailash. Then there's a mudslide that comes in, like in a blink of an eye. Then there's a lot of damage. It brings in a lot of debris. It brings a lot of stones, rocks, everything. And then it just swipes everything away.
People swept away.
Yes, people, buses, vans, trucks, buildings, houses, everything's gone in a matter of seconds.
What went through?
Yeah, pretty disturbing with the videos.
Yeah, when you saw it for the first time, what went through your mind?
It's shocking, like floods and landslides. It's a bit like landslides are pretty prone in that area. Some road disturbance, it's continuously going on in that side, but then it's rebuilt, renovated in a matter of a couple hours. But then this time it's completely wiped off. So it's pretty disturbing seeing all the people, day in and day out, we're doing the same work. But then seeing it this way, it's disheartening, yes.
I take it you're hearing from family members of those who were there. What have you heard from them?
Yes, so we are contacting their family members. We're trying to get in touch with anyone who may be, still there. We're trying to contact the rescue people, the helicopter people, so the military, whoever we can reach out to, just to get in touch or see what's happening and how we can be of help in any way we can.
I guess what compounds things is that this is a particular time of year, which makes it extra popular at
this time with tourists. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, so Mount Kailash, which is in Tibet, is a very special place in Hinduism and Buddhism and Bonism. And May through October, so it's like 5-6 months of travel time, and it's like a good time to visit. There are a lot of pilgrims, a lot of tourists who would like to visit this part of Tibet, the west part of Tibet and central part. So it's the weather-wise, it's very nice. And this is like the peak time when people, they want to visit. On top of that, on the religious point of view, it's the full moon rush going on. So 28th of August is the full moon. So there are a lot of people who would want to be around Mount Kailash region during this time. So it's a pretty peak time for the tourists as well.
That's Obil Adhikari. He works for a tour company that offers a guided trek from Nepal to Tibet. He was in Kathmandu, Nepal, speaking there with Paul Hunter on As It Happens. And you can go to travel.gc.ca to find out how all the ways to connect through Global Affairs Canada if you or someone you know might be impacted by that flooding. Well, 8:27 right now, and we were hoping to get in touch with Councillor Marcus Chambers to talk about his initiative to encourage downtown businesses to show their Canadian flags. He's calling it Operation Naked Flagpole. We're having trouble connecting with him now, so we're going to see if maybe he can join us on one of our shows later on today. So instead, we got some Canadian music for you. Nelly Furtado's seminal album Loose turned 20 this summer, and to mark the anniversary, that album is getting a special re-release. The special edition will include never-before-heard vault tracks and a top-secret demo. So here's a track from Loose. This is Nelly Furtado with Say It Right here on CBC Radio One. That's Say It Right by Nelly Furtado, and believe it or not, that song came out on her album Loose, out in 2006, so 20 years ago. Time now for your CBC News from Manitoba.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it is sunny, 16 degrees. Grab your shades, roll down the windows. Just a beautiful day out there. We're headed to a high of 23. Child safety advocates are not convinced a massive court settlement involving social media giant Meta will mean better protection for young people online. Meta has agreed to pay up to $18 billion to settle a lawsuit launched by dozens of states. They allege the owner of Facebook and Instagram has deliberately designed its platforms to be addictive to children and teens. Meta has agreed to strengthen child safety measures and give parents more user-friendly controls. But Jacques Marcoux at the Canadian Centre for Child Protection in Winnipeg doesn't expect to see a lot has changed.
What is needed is more than just a bunch of lawsuits. What we need is the creation of legal frameworks that impose actual duties of care, responsibilities onto the tech industry, which is something we currently don't have.
Marcoux also notes because this is a U.S. court case, it's not clear if Meta would apply the same measures in Canada. A Winnipeg candle company hopes to escape most of the financial fallout from the latest round of American tariffs. That's because Farmer's Son chose to find new clients and partners outside the U.S. when the first round of tariffs kicked in. Co-owner Dan Mitchell says they overhauled their business model, expanded their retail store, and now source materials and new products from Canada, Asia, and Europe.
There's still different materials that we know we can't source in Canada, and a lot of it comes down to vetting partners overseas before saying, okay, we're going to send this many dollars to a factory wherever to buy glassware or packaging.
Mitchell says his costs could still go up with the latest tariffs, but he's glad he has already made the pivot. The first phase of Winnipeg's North End sewage plant upgrade has officially started. The Headworks facility filters wastewater and pumps it through the rest of the plant. Waste and Water Chair Ross Eady says this is an important milestone for the city.
It's the important, very important first step to being able to handle the capacity of a growing Winnipeg and to resolve the problem of too many nutrients getting into the Red River and Lake Winnipeg.
The city warns people who live nearby may notice a smell over the coming weeks. The facility uses a biological process to cut down on odor, but officials say it takes time for the bacteria that breaks down the material to grow inside the plant. They say that process should be finished by the end of September. Some Manitoba pop-up markets are sounding the alarm about scammers posing as them to try to steal money from businesses.
When I first saw it, I thought, this is pretty well written. I couldn't see how you could easily get scammed.
Holiday Alley co-founder Shirley Muir. The annual Winter Festival in Selkirk hosts a craft market. Muir says one of its regular vendors received an email from a scammer inviting them to Holiday Alley.
The owners of the store got a hold of us, asked us if this was a scam. We looked at it, we said absolutely it was, and then we immediately notified a very large database of marketers that we have to let them know that this was going on and to protect themselves.
Other organizations have also reported scammers pretending to be them through email, including the Manitoba Hydro Santa Parade and the Third and Bird Urban Market. Assiniboine Park Zoo has a lot of hope in a new addition. A male red panda born in June. Officials hope the cub helps the endangered species grow in numbers. This week, the 10-week-old has started venturing out of the nest box he shares with his mom. Animal Health Director Charlene Berkvin says if visitors want to see him, they'll be lucky.
We're not going to force him to come out. He has access. He can come out if he wants. He probably will start spending more and more time outside. But, he's just starting to experience it. So he'll have to build up that confidence with zoo visitors and stuff like that.
Well, this is the 36th red panda to be born at Winnipeg's Assiniboine Park Zoo since 2003. This one doesn't have a name yet, and the zoo does plan a naming contest this fall. You can see this panda and you can find other news at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
You almost had cuteness overload again there. You had to really think about it.
I can't even believe that. Wow. I'm going to have to start writing things down.
You know what? The baby panda is distracting. I was trying to think about what I would want to name him.
What would you call him?
All I could think about was Cutie Patootie. But that's...
Aww. How about Rusty? His hair color is kind of rusty.
Actually, that's a really nice name. I bet you there's a baby panda out there already with that name. Wouldn't be
Probably,
surprised.
yeah. Not that original.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That's Heather Wells at your CBC News Desk. Abby Adiemi is in with a look at the weather.
Yes, Corey, lots of sunshine, pleasant lows to meet 20 temperatures already taking taking over both the north and the southern regions. Southern Manitoba, we've seen lots of sunshine already, 8 to 11 degrees. That's what we're tracking. And we'll see highs 23s to 26 across board before we see those cool temperatures overnight. And of course, for tomorrow, there's a good chance of late afternoon showers to the Westman, Pembina Valley, and even the Interlake region. Just a slim chance of showers here in Winnipeg. But up north, the fog still clearing around the Thompson Lynn Lake area with highs in the 24s. Winnipeg right now, we're looking at highs close to 23. It is 15 at the Forks.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
Sierra, what's going on with the commute?
Yeah, Corey, still keeping an eye on that multi-vehicle collision westbound Abinogi just before Shore Hill Drive, kind of after the tracks there. There's a multi-vehicle collision there in the median lane. Emergency crews are on scene, but from the caller that I heard from about an hour ago, causing quite a big backup there. So keep right to pass if you are approaching that collision there.
Thank you very much, Sierra. And thank you to everyone who helped put together today's show. Our associate producers, Emily Enns, Michaela Van Kooten, Sophia Peralta-Baron, and Kaylin Monkman. Also, thanks to Abby Adeyemi, John George, Darren Morash, and Sierra Sanders. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. We'll see you tomorrow. Up next, The Current. Have a good one.